Hey, everybody. I put off starting a podcast for over a year because I didn't think I could figure it out or afford it until I found a website called Buzzsprout. They took care of the complicated work for me. Buzzsprout helped me through every aspect of launching my podcast and making it sound and look great. They have tools and tips on buying gear and setting it up, as well as loading your podcast onto popular directories including Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon with just one click. Not only that, Buzzsprout can show you how to get paid for your podcast, which is what I'm doing right now. And as an added promo, if you sign up for a paid account, Buzzsprout will give you an Amazon gift card worth $20. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the show notes to let Buzzsprout know that I sent you and start launching your podcast today. We're rolling.
All right.
Yeah. So here we are up to episode 5 already.
Amazing. I was on 1 and 2 thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you're doing so far, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Thanks for reaching out, and this is kind of cool that you're providing this kind of platform just to promote some dialogue, with something that we're not getting enough of nowadays without people, going a little crazy, So
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
You can get right up on that mic if you want. Don't be shy.
I got to kiss it. Hold on.
There you go. Yeah. They're fully sterilized. You can pull the stand closer to you.
Yeah.
Also,
cool.
if you want there, just to make it more comfortable, so you're not like hunched over or anything like that.
Cool. Yeah.
Got to be comfortable.
Yeah, that's right.
So, my man, Jamaal Williams, we got another American in here. Not a professional singer though. No,
not even close. I would not try that if my life depended on it.
Yeah, we got the first two. The first podcast was Charles Castronovo, and then Sarah Reichert, and she's a business consultant. And then we got Andy Nolan, who's a bass baritone buddy of mine. You're gonna like Andy; he'll put you to sleep. He's got that great radio voice, man. But he's a really smart guy. He applied for jobs at Google when his singing work was low, and he was, almost got in there and stuff like that. He's
something in particular?
He's a computer science guy. He's
okay.
He's really big into these, these really complex games that are out there today.
Yeah.
He has ideas about like building a game one day, or stuff like that. My 13-year-old son, wants to do the same thing. He seems to have it all figured out. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of computer science work in Google.
They seem the younger generation seems to have the edge on this computer tech stuff. They seem to figure it out much faster than we do.
I agree. My daughter's the same. She shows me stuff sometimes where I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I kind of got to see, I would say the more old school and new school combo, like just combine all as a kid. So I want to say by the time I was, 15 in the late 90s, you started seeing the 1 gigabyte hard drives.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of those games where you can only have one game on the computer.
Yeah.
Before you had to delete it just to make space for the next game.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas nowadays, going through the transition, I think it was 2007, I was in New York, and I went to that Apple store when the madness started with the iPhones.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And I mean, looking at those phones now and then looking at what they are now is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
But my daughter, she's a wizard. Does edits, I think, already at age 9 or 10. She's already producing her own episodes of her own makeshift show. She's inspired by some of the TV she watches. She's a big Marvel fan. And she says, you know what, I'm going to create Charlotte Vision instead of WandaVision.
Nice.
Like, oh, wow. And she started making episodes. We're on a walk with some friends, and she just goes about filming, and then she transitions it to black and white. I'm looking at the video like, how do you know how to do this already? You're 9 years old. Is this in school, or what? Is this you just screwing off in your free time that I'm not aware of, or what is that? So
yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. These kids, like, even I remember when my son was really young. My son is he's the more gregarious. He's a bit extroverted, and my daughter is pretty much the opposite. She's like the big introvert. She's fine like hanging out in her room all day by herself.
Yeah.
Just like drawing and stuff like that. And my son needs like interaction. He's chatting with friends on his phone. He's chatting with friends live. He's always like setting up dates to hang out with his friends and stuff like that. Like, I mean, the pandemic hit him the hardest.
Yeah.
When he couldn't go to school, just really hard on him. But yeah, I mean, that's all come back now, and he's like involved in a musical. He's taken all kinds of, so he's all like into the social interaction and stuff like that. So
yeah, my daughter's a combination of both. She's very, I think in a way she's a super extrovert, and at the same time she's, very private at the same time. She's I can't get a full read on her, which is, I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And, as a parent, you always got to find the balance between, being too involved and also kind of stepping back and letting their own personality develop in the way that it does. But, when COVID hit, at the beginning, it was an adjustment for her because, again, there's that extrovert, and she was like, we're stuck at home. We're both still working from our desks, at the time, one had a desk and one had a couch.
Okay.
And the daughter would come in and she would be like, oh, wait, mom's in a call, can't talk. I would look at her and give her the look like, hey, and then she'd, okay, close the door. Because, of course, for everyone in all the schools, it was just chaos. At the very beginning, there was no plan. It's just, okay, kids have to stay home, but we're going to try to figure something out. I would say we were pretty lucky with our school because I think it took about a week for the school to kind of get things together. Whereas I heard horror stories from other people with kids like, oh, wow, your school's doing this. After a week, our classrooms were already set up and online. They had the Google Classroom set up by subject. They had timetables of classes when the teachers and students can all meet up, and you could just hear the laughter in the next room when she was on with her classmates.
Oh yeah,
talking to her teachers. It's like, okay, she's good to go now. She's got her social contact back.
Right. I guess there was all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes with the kids. There's sort of through Zoom you can do a private message. You can private message your buddy, while the teacher is talking.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah, it's just like passing notes. Just like we would pass notes in class. It's the same thing.
I could imagine what those kids were up to.
Exactly. And I'm sure they're all like sort of bragging about like, guess what I'm wearing on my bottom half.
Yeah,
got my pajamas on, I got polka dotted pants on or whatever, probably much worse,
The worst thing that would happen is if that actually went into the public chat. I don't know if that's a thing or if it's only private or, slipping around and then you mess around. Teacher, what is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. Couldn't imagine.
Yeah, I think my son as a joke one day, just as a joke for the class, he drew like a stick figure on a piece of paper and stuck it in front of the camera. With like his name above it, or underneath, like, it has all the kids' names when you do Zoom.
Yeah.
It has everybody's name like underneath on the bottom of the screen, and he just wrote, his name on the bottom and
that would be funny.
Just as a joke.
Yeah, of course.
He's a jokester.
That's a good thing. It's better to be a jokester in that sense than the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kind of being, I'm glad it sounds like your kids both have a lot of character, and that's, that's the best thing we can wish for as parents is, that the kids are, as active as possible. I wouldn't want to have a child that's maybe a little more, I would say
sedentary,
not as active.
That's sort of my goal for them is to really get their bodies moving and get them out the door and stuff like that. And, it's now hard because they're both teenagers. They're 17 and 13. And so it's like, it's hard.
Yeah, my daughter's 12 now, and I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's like, and now like the hormones are starting, and so, yeah, but it's working out. We're finding the balance.
Good
for all that. So we met at the rink. This was actually one of my hockey buddies.
Yep.
But we got to chat, and he approached me. I guess he approached me first because he heard me speaking English, and when you're an American, you're living in a foreign country, it's like your ear is tuned. Like whenever you hear somebody speaking, especially with some kind of North American accent, you hone in on that, right?
Yeah,
it's sort of like
the radar goes up.
Yeah, it's not even, you're not even hesitant a little bit to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm certainly glad you did. So we got to chatting, and yeah, I found out this guy is quite an interesting backstory, and I try to do a little bit of research on everybody, you know. So I went to my search engine, which is brave.com. I don't use Google anymore.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that, and I heard you talking about some of those things that we don't really pay attention to so much.
There's a podcast with Joe Rogan you can check out, where it's this guy who's got it's basically like a campaign he's got going against mostly Google, but basically all the tech giants. But it's about these algorithms that just collect so much data, and Google is now using that data as influence. Mm-hmm. Facebook, same thing, kind of thing. You know, and we can't avoid those. I mean, our loved ones are on Facebook. We live across the ocean. We want to like connect with them and stuff like that. We can't avoid it. Yeah. But it sure would be nice to know what they're doing.
I almost don't want to know what they're doing, but I know what you're getting at and saying, we should probably know a few more things that we don't at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this guy recommended brave.com, and it's really easy to switch. If you're using like Google Chrome or something like that, it's really easy to switch. It's like I had tons of bookmarks. That's what I was worried about. So like I got all these bookmarks on Google, and I'm going to have to like reset all those for Brave. Okay. Well, when you're signing into Brave, one of the screens is, would you like to move all your bookmarks over from your previous search engine? Mm-hmm. Yes or no?
And that's completely safe. Like
as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. As far as I know. I mean,
because how it already picks up on that. I mean, yeah, you would think it could, but I mean, it throws me off a little bit thinking about it, like, oh wow, it already wants me to navigate all my stuff. Maybe it is harmless, but maybe I'm just overthinking it a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
But it's just another search platform.
A click. Yeah, so I just clicked it. Yeah, it's a search engine.
Okay.
It's a search engine, like using Safari or Firefox or
that's good.
Internet Explorer or Google.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out for
Chrome.
Sure. I'll give it a look.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah,
check it out.
Worth it.
They're pretty open, and it's not like they have an ad campaign, a way to disseminate advertising. But it's not like the way Google does it or Safari Safari is pretty good actually, I think. But Google, they're really tracking your movements on the internet, and then they're really targeting you with ads.
Yeah.
With Brave, you can opt out of the ads altogether, and they're just like, we're cool with that. You can continue to use Brave.com with no, like they don't slow the searches down or anything like that, or curate the searches or anything like that. But you can also opt in for their ad program, and when you opt in, what happens is they will. You can say like, I want to receive one ad per internet hour. So per the time you're using Brave, up to an hour you get one ad, or it can be like 5, and they come up as notifications.
Okay.
So it's not like, it doesn't like in YouTube, when like suddenly it interrupts your program, stuff like that. It's not that. Mm-hmm. It comes up in like a notification on the top of your screen, and you can actually choose to click on it or not. If you click on it and you watch the ad, which is just like a normal ad, you get a cryptocurrency. They give it to you.
Yeah.
They call it a BAT, B-A-T. It probably stands for something. But then at the end of a certain cycle, I'm not sure if it's like a quarterly or monthly or weekly, I can't remember, but they will tell you like, what do you want to do with the BAT that you've earned?
Right.
And with this BAT, you can buy like, they call it digital items. I'm not even sure what that is. Like, I don't know, if you get like 2 million BAT, can you buy an NFT with it? Right. I don't know. Or you can simply cash it out.
Yeah,
they'll make like a bank transfer, or they'll put it into your PayPal account or something like that.
That's
whatever.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, you can like opt in, opt out to the, if you're really ambitious about collecting this BAT crypto, you can like go crazy on it. You know
this cryptocurrency market, right? It's pretty contagious.
And there was just a huge crash.
Yeah, I'm pretty aware. It's, I mean, I don't.
You have some invested?
I do have some invested.
Yeah, me too.
Not an incredible amount, thankfully.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
You always have to.
You got to diversify.
Oh, you have to. Yeah. Hardcore. And I remember, before I jumped into it, I don't know how many videos and different things I was going through just to kind of see, is this something I actually want to throw my money in?
Right.
And yeah, I was able to, the first thing they always said was diversify, and also to make sure that, don't throw money in there that you're not willing to lose. And of course, if you can operate on that, and if you have a little extra change, you don't have to throw tons of money in there. But if you have something to throw in there, why not? See what it does. And hey, we've seen the highs and lows, I would say.
Exactly. I got a buddy who's really into it. Like he actually, and he's going to be a guest in the podcast in the future, so I'll talk to him more about this. But I don't know how much I should say about it now, but I'll just say he's really into it.
Yeah,
he's really into it, and he basically is like on his computer watching the cryptos go up and down throughout the course of the day and investing accordingly. Yeah, so I mean, it's like his job. Yeah. He's like on it.
I think of course there's a lot, I think, to be made in that sense if you're really on it all the time and you can recognize those spikes and right when they're about to happen, or if you're following certain Twitter pages and things like that where they're reacting in real time, because you'll notice that during the crashes per se, or the spikes, like when Shiba spiked the one time and it just started shooting up, and you just saw the trending, and you just saw everybody, hey, Shiba, millionaire, Shiba spiked to the moon, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, let me throw a couple. And I did see that rapid spike, and I was like, oh, wow, this is a thing. Like, very interesting. I don't do it, religiously. Okay. Of course, like some people would and do. Hey, to each his own.
Are you kind of investing a little bit every month, or you kind of put some in there and just kind of watch it and see how it goes?
I just threw it in there. Exactly. And just kind of watch it, play with it here and there, move it around.
Okay. But I don't even do that. I just I think I bought some Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay. And I'm just kind of seeing how it goes.
Hey, the top two. So why not? Yeah. Right? I think I threw in the beginning, of course, some Bitcoin, then Ethereum. And then I saw some of these other little ones like Solana. That maybe isn't as popular as the top two, but I think Solana moved up to number 7 on the cryptocurrency chart in terms of having the most market value. So I was like, let me see what that is. And I think I was able to get that at a lower price, and then it spiked up a couple $100. And I was like, oh, nice. So that was kind of one of those things where I was like, okay, let me take a little bit of this and move it over here. And then you have some of those low potential currencies that might spike, and then they dip as fast as they spike, and you can never really know unless you're really into it all the time, and you're knowing what these these different currencies are standing for in their white pages and what they're doing, if it's actually worth investing in. And there's a lot behind it, but I don't.
There totally is, and I can tell maybe 20 times more than I know. So.
I don't get too deep in it nowadays due to the crash. I do keep a side eye on it just to say, how low is it today? Yeah, okay, I'll look at it again in a week. Let's see. So it can be exciting, I think, when it's going, and you have a little bit in there, so you're like, how can I make a little more money? Everybody likes to make a little more here and there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. How did we get on there? Oh, I searched you. I brave.com'd you. I braved you. No, that doesn't work. I don't know. Google's just works. That's the vernacular these days.
Did you find me on the Lions?
I wanted to congratulate you on a great season in the NFL. You're running back for the Lions.
Hey, we ended that one with a bang, Yeah, I get that one a few times. Hey, you play for the Lions? Yeah, sure. Sometimes you kind of run with it, but
exactly. I knew you were like athletic, but wow. No, that was great. So yeah, there's a Jamaal Williams. They spelled Jamaal the same way. He puts 2 A's between the M and the L.
That's the right way. That's the right way.
That's the right way.
Yeah.
And apparently he is a pretty good running back for the Detroit Lions, which is really, really interesting. So that's great. That's great. I think there's an Eric Fennell who used to be. There are Eric Fennells out there.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah, there are a few. But there was one particular guy who was a photographer in the 1950s. I don't know if you remember this photo. I think it probably got memed, somewhere. But it's sort of this famous photo. I think it's from maybe the late 50s. It's a picture of a highway, and the highway like stretches out in front of you.
Okay.
You know, and there are cars on there like 57 Chevys and stuff like that, you know, like these really old, these 1950s cars. And the sky is completely blank, except there's a flying saucer there. It's black and white.
Okay. I would have to see it. Maybe I would recognize it.
If you saw it, I think you would recognize it, you know, because, I mean, clearly he superimposed the flying saucer on there, but, you know, it was to sort of prove a point.
Yeah.
You know, like, because, you know, you remember like these sci-fi films came out in the 1950s, and there was sort of like this sort of boom in sci-fi. And I mean, you know, from a military standpoint, there was probably like all this experimental aircraft in the air, and people drank a lot, and they would, you know, look up in the sky, and they don't know what they saw, you know.
You know, those stories, man. I mean, you never know. Like, I mean, I'm not too deep into, you know, the Area 51s and the, you know, all these different sci-fi stories of our time, but I do love, of course, a good sci-fi movie, and of course, I grew up in that. Star Trek, The Next Generation, I would say, was the era I grew up in. Okay. You know, I think in my time it was either Star Wars or Star Trek. I don't know if I ever knew anybody that did both. But I was definitely a Star Trek kid coming up, Captain Picard and all those guys.
Yeah, I like The Next Generation. I thought that was cool. That was entertaining stuff.
Some of the movies.
Yeah.
All those things were awesome at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the reel, I mean, I'm not sure if I was ever big on it. I know some people were like, you know, they would see a movie and then they would just get to talking and get to, you know, you'd see the theories start flying out there.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, art. You know, you'd see a video on a random TV show, maybe Unsolved Mysteries or something, who knows?
Right.
Where they would talk about something like that, and
Right. It's amazing. Like now, like it's so easy to debunk all those things, you know. But there was a time, you know, late 70s, early 80s and stuff like that where, you know, you remember this stupid Bigfoot video that came out? Everybody thought it was real. You know, I mean, it's like this guy hiding behind the bush, and like Bigfoot's walking away and just like turns to the camera, and you're like, oh my God, it's Bigfoot. It's really him. And, you know, of course, I think it was maybe the late 90s or maybe the early 2000s, like somebody debunked it. Like, that's a dude in a suit. I mean, can't anybody else see that? I think, you know, we as a society, we want to believe that stuff so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's always a curiosity for the unknown, and, you know, what can we talk about?
Exactly. The supernatural, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeez, these movies that, you know.
Yeah. The show was another one, you know, Supernatural, that really touched on some of the crazy. I don't know if you're ever into that show at all.
I don't think I saw that one.
That was good.
Was it like a Discovery Channel one or?
No, that was, I can't remember what the platform was that started it, but it actually became a pretty big hit. It's a pretty good show. It just finished up 15 seasons. So, yeah, exactly. The characters were real likable. That's what I enjoyed the most about the show. But yeah, it had a lot to do with angels and demons, and you know, something like a Bigfoot attacking somebody randomly in a tent in the woods somewhere. Yeah. It touched on a lot of different things. It was a really interesting show. Can recommend it if you are interested in.
Check it out.
Something.
Is it like a Hulu show or?
You can get it on Prime. You can get it on Prime now.
Oh, okay.
For sure. That's where I used. That's where I streamed it.
Okay.
It just came out with the last season there, so I think it was time for them to stop. It was a good way to cut it off. But how do you cut off a show that's been on so long?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure you've watched countless series, but if it goes too long and then it finally ends, you're like, what was that?
Jumps the shark. You know what you heard that phrase before? Jumping the shark?
Nah.
Okay. So now you're showing your age. Now we're showing our age difference. Oh,
here we go.
Because you're like 37, 38?
Yeah, 37.
37. Wow, I nailed that.
Good one, man. Good.
So are you still Gen X or are you?
I think it's Gen X technically.
Yeah.
I think it's from like the 80s to
84. It's like 83 or 84 or something like
84.
that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you remember the show, which you probably saw in syndication, Happy Days.
I remember Happy Days. I didn't watch it, but I remember the show.
You know, it was like the Fonz. He wore this leather jacket, you know. It's supposed to be like, so I guess sort of an Elvis Presley knockoff, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a huge hit.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Was that the one? Wednesday, Thursday, Happy Days? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I used to see the intro all the time.
Happy Days. Yeah. So, huge hit. massive. I mean, it put like Frank Marshall. I guess he was the executive producer of that or the creator. I mean, he just put him on the map. And he went on to do so many great things after that, you know. And a lot of Ron Howard too. Ron Howard was the star. And
the name rings a bell. I would probably.
Well, now he's a director.
That's probably where I've seen his name.
Now he's a director. You know, Apollo 13.
Okay, yeah.
He didn't do Forrest Gump. No, he did.
But big in the 90s.
He's still big now. I mean, as a director, he's big now. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to see some of his works, but I'm pretty sure I know who he is.
You know who he is.
Of
You've
course.
seen his movies.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you can imagine, it's hard to keep material going, you know, because it's like, I mean, you know, it's a half an hour show, but the ads are, you know, the commercials are taking up, 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got like a 22-minute show. And, you know, over the course of, I don't know how many seasons that thing was on, like 11 seasons or something like that. You know, you've got hundreds of shows and you got to just like keep it going. And, you know, these kids who started out as teenagers are now in like their mid-20s. They're like, okay, how can we advance the storyline, you know? And they're bringing in new characters. Fonzie's got a new girlfriend. Richie starts drinking, whatever, you know? So they had this one idea. I think it was probably one of the last shows they did where Fonzie, you know, like the really cool guys, like, hey, always do this thumbs up thing. Hey, somebody like challenged him, or I forget the exact story, but they either challenged him, you know, and Fonzie couldn't let him like damage his reputation or something like that. Or he was like extorting him for something, you know, like, I don't know, we're going to fire your girlfriend from her job or whatever. Like, we're going to buy the town if you don't do this thing for it. And he had to do this stunt. He had to water ski jump over a shark.
And was that his actual stunt? He did that stunt. Wow.
Well, the actor didn't do it, but his character did it.
Fair enough.
The actor did not do it. I mean, it was like, you know, it would cut back and forth between like a stunt guy, you know, a long shot of a stunt guy, and you know, and then the actual actor standing on something because you couldn't see his feet, you know, with like the green screen behind, you know, green screen in the late 70s. I mean,
Star Wars, the classic.
I mean,
when it came to green screen.
Yeah, but I mean, this was way worse than Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
They did great with that because they used all these miniature models. I think that's why that really worked. They used very little green screen in that, I think.
I can imagine how that was seen in that day, like in terms of how amazing that was.
Yeah,
of course, when you look at it now, you're like, oh, wow. You know, because of course, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, like with Star Wars, I've watched so many, you know, making of kind of thing. It's like, oh, now I see that. You know, like the original land speeder was just like on a boom that they sort of swung around like this. And sometimes they would have it where it actually had like rubber tires on there. And the way they got rid of it in the film was they took Vaseline with their thumb and just like rubbed where the tires are.
Genius.
And so underneath it just looks like, you know, like hot exhaust.
That's
under
pretty
there,
good.
which is like totally feasible, you know? So anyway, back to Happy Days. So he had to jump the shark.
And that's where that phrase comes from.
And of course the TV critics just tore that show to pieces. Like, this is a show about like 50s nostalgia.
Right.
And they're showing a guy in a leather jacket, and he had his leather jacket on in the water.
Of course, you got to stay in character.
Water ski jumping over a shark. Like, does that make any sense at all in any universe?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Not so much.
So the critics tore it apart. And of course, the fans were like, okay, now we've seen just too much.
Well,
like, we can accept Fonzie like in a demolition derby. We can accept him. We can accept the fact that he knows how to punch the jukebox just right so it starts up by itself. But we can't accept him jumping over a shark in water skis in a leather jacket. So that's where that phrase comes, jumping the shark. And that's sort of like, you know, now they use it like to mark the end of, you know.
That's good to know. That's good to know. thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because now I'll know what that. I'm probably gonna hear it all the time. You know, it's like when you see somebody or you meet somebody the first time, like formally. You know, hey, I'm Jamaal, you're Eric. But we've seen each other before, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've been within each other's vicinity the whole time, but you never noticed each other. But now that you've actually met, you see each other every day, and it's like, oh, hey, what's up? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Sense. So, but now I'm going to hear that phrase everywhere, all the time, for sure.
So I did not find much on you on the World Wide Web.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, I think that's a compliment. That's a good thing, because you find all kinds of crazy stuff with me. Hey, everybody. Got the munchies but don't want to miss the game or pause the movie? Or need to buy some groceries but have no time to get to the supermarket? Your time is valuable. Don't waste it standing in line at the cashier or sitting in traffic. Order food online from the comfort of your own home with Instacart. They hand-select products you love from stores right in your own neighborhood. Not only that, Instacart is fast. They can deliver right to your door in as little as 1 hour. So get all the food you would normally buy, including fresh produce and eggs, with Instacart. Setting up an account is also fast and easy. Click on the link in the show notes to let Instacart know I sent you. Don't run out of food or miss a minute of the game at your Super Bowl party. Click the link in the show notes and let Instacart supply your party with any food you and your guests crave.
Too,
yeah,
so.
No. Of course. I mean, it's a lot, because I know now you're 12 years younger, or 13 years younger than me. I'm 50.
Wow, good for you, man.
Thank you.
I need to look like that at 50. I need to move around like you do at 50. I hope
it's moisturizer. Let me tell you, it's moisturizer and stretching
and hockey.
Yeah. Hockey keeps you in shape. Let me tell you, that's the greatest sport in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I was. We chatted a little bit at the rink, but we didn't really get into a lot of stuff with you, and about your sort of origin story. Let's see. Where can we start? You're from Tampa Bay, and I won't hold that against you. He's got his Stanley Cup champions 2021.
Yep, bright blue
T-shirt,
bright blue,
sitting right across from me here.
I made sure it stood out.
I could drop my gloves with you right here.
I know that Flyers jersey. Anyway. The first time I met you, I was like, oh yeah,
great Flyers guy.
I'll stay in my weight class. I'm good.
So anyway, are you from Tampa? Were you born in Tampa?
No, I wasn't born there. I moved there when I was 9. And that basically was the place I grew up. My dad was in the Air Force, so we traveled around a bunch when I was a kid. I was born in Texas. Then we moved to Japan. Then we moved to Arizona. Then we moved to New York. And then in New York is where my mom and dad separated when I was 7. And mom wanted to be close to family, so most of our family's in New York, in upstate, Albany. Mm-hmm. We spent a little time in Buffalo, a couple years, and that was, going to hockey-wise, that was, I think that's where I first saw the sport, how big ice hockey is in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's huge.
And we had relatives in Toronto, so there was nothing, there was no shyness of hockey, but I wasn't really big on it in my 7, 8, 9-year-old youth. Mm-hmm. But I did kind of see the commercials on TV. It was always Mogilny and LaFontaine and those guys. Because they were big in Buffalo in those years.
Tom Barrasso. Was he there at that point?
Hasek was there. I think Barrasso.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he was there
before Hasek.
Barrasso was probably before.
Okay.
But that was my kind of mini intro to hockey in terms of just seeing it on the surface, but still wasn't a big thing in the black community, particularly where I was from. We grew up more on basketball, and tennis was really big with one of my aunts. She had hoppers in her basement. Hoppers are those big ball cages. Yeah. So if we wanted to go play tennis, there was no shortage of just grabbing a hopper, going up to the tennis court, and you can play all day.
Yeah, that's great.
So that was a big thing. But eventually we moved to Florida. My mom wanted to get away. She had an opportunity. We first went down, and we spent about a week there with one of her high school friends. Mm-hmm. This was in Orlando, and I was 9 years old, and it was February, and we were going from Buffalo to Orlando in February. Ooh. So the temperature change was massive, and we got there, it was blue sky, it was about in the 80s, and I was like, oh wow, Like, I never want to go back to Buffalo. Like, this is amazing, But we stayed there for about a week, got to see a few things, got spoiled, got taken to Disney, Universal, these things. And I'm like, wow, this place is so cool. We go back to New York. My mom, mentions a few weeks later, hey, we're going to move to Florida. And I was like, yeah, it was, that was a big thing for me at the time. And, that was the first time we're actually also going to move away from a lot of our family because my family is massive. She has 6 sisters, 4 brothers. Okay. So I have cousins all day. Same with my dad, 6 sisters, 4 brothers. So each.
Wow.
So I have a ton of cousins that I don't know still.
Oh, yeah.
On my dad's side, I was he's the second oldest of 11. And my mom's the second youngest of 11. So on my mom's side, I definitely knew everybody because everybody was already there. Whereas on my dad's side, I'm still getting, sometimes that random friend request where it's just like, who's that? And then I see the mutual friends. I'm like, okay. 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
Got it.
Great.
And so, moving down to Florida, with a single mom, 2 brothers, at the time, just one older brother. And a stepfather because she just gotten together with our stepfather, whom I wasn't 100% comfortable with at the time, but hey, he was moving with us, so I was like, all right, maybe he might be the real deal. Okay. So it was the 4 of us, and then a year later, not even, my little brother came along, from my stepfather. Mm-hmm. So now I have 2 brothers, and then, that was quite the experience, I'll say. Just starting out in Tampa as a 5th grader. But yeah, even nowadays I still call it home because that's where I remember we were actually, that was elementary, middle, high school. That was my childhood. There's a lot of different layers, but that's the surface of everything. Good.
So you then entered, how did you get into the armed forces? How do I set up this question?
Yeah, so so
you got through high school.
Yeah.
Did you do like the ROTC thing in high school? Or,
there's the delayed entry program for sure. I did for about 7 or 8 months or so. So my dad was in the Air Force, like I said. That kind of had a mini impact. My big brother had joined the Army in the late 90s. He was a Ranger. That had an impact. One of my uncles was in the Navy. And I was a senior in high school. And I had just entered the arena of wrestling. Since I was a smaller, on the smaller end, I was always big in all sports. I ran track. I played football.
Oh, cool.
Second smallest football player, but second fastest, so it was worth it.
Yeah.
And I started wrestling since that was kind of a sport where I can actually go and I can compete because I actually have a weight class.
Weight class, right.
I was the smallest still, go figure. I was at the 103 end of the spectrum.
Right.
But I was finally able to go to a sport where I felt like, oh, wow, I'm not the smallest guy, or I was still the smallest guy, but I can actually compete as one of the smaller people now.
I'm in the 103 weight class too. 103 kilos.
Twice. Wow. Nice. No. My coach, my wrestling coach actually had been trying to recruit me from the time I was a freshman.
Oh, cool.
I was a little guy. I would probably say I was 4'10" going into high school.
What?
Probably about 80 pounds soaking wet. So I was really little. And then by the time I was a senior, I was about the height I am now, 5'7". And I weighed about $120 soaking wet.
Okay.
Couldn't stay around the 120 weight class, unfortunately, because we actually had a really good team. And coming in there cold and, wrestling a guy that's 119 that actually is coming down from maybe 10 or 15 pounds heavier was like wrestling a truck. So I was like, okay, I can't wrestle this weight class. How about the next weight class down? We had a state runner-up. I was like, okay, can't compete there. But hey, 103 is something if you can make it down to the weight. Coach is like, if you can make it, it's yours. That's your weight class. I think you would do really good. So
no McDonald's, no Taco Bell.
Oh man, the weight cuts were the worst. You probably know a thing or two, maybe just being involved in sports. But
hold on.
Yeah,
my mom's calling me. I'm going to have to tell her to call me back.
Nice.
No, I never had to cut weight.
Good.
I did. I played some pretty competitive hockey in college, and just naturally because we were just playing so much.
Right.
I lost a bunch of weight. I was pretty lanky.
Yeah, it's
my freshman year of college.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, hockey, with the constant sprinting, you're bound to go down to whatever your natural weight might be when you're in peak condition, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I lost maybe 2 pounds during the wrestling season that were natural pounds, just based on the conditioning regimen and the constant wear and tear, and if you're eating normal.
Yeah.
But then, of course, once you factor in, okay, I have to cut 10 pounds by Saturday, and it's Tuesday, it's like, oh, shit, So, of course, the diet has to suffer. Your appetite has to go down. You have to control your intake of fluids. You really have to limit everything to almost ground zero,
man,
just to be able to,
crazy.
Make weight on Saturday morning or Friday night whenever we had a dual meet. Those were some long days.
I mean, the armed forces, they definitely teach you a lot about discipline,
right?
Which you basically carry on into your life. But it sounds like, because you kind of come from almost a mostly military family. Yeah. You at least got a taste of that, and then it was probably reinforced with the wrestling as well.
Definitely had a big role. And digressed off to wrestling. How did you get in the armed forces? Okay. I wrestled. No, but how that ties in, the recruiter, as they do in the States, they walk around. They can come during lunchtime and put up their little stands, and they can they just watch high schoolers walk by. I know that's a thing that's unheard of here, based on what I hear from people who go to school here. They say the military people are at your school and they're advertising. I'm like, yeah, that was a normal thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there's some kind of law. It's not just with the armed forces. It's with any kind of organization. They can't sort of track you down and what we call it recruiting, but because I think there was there's a couple of churches of Scientology in Germany. I think a friend was telling me once about one in Stuttgart. Mm-hmm. The rule is they can't talk to you. So what the Church of Scientology people, when they were trying to recruit you, what they would do is they would stand outside the church doors, basically on the sidewalk, and people would walk by and they would come up to you and kind of mime,
that is creepy. That's creepy. That's
but they can't. By law, they're not allowed to talk to you.
Wow. Yeah, that's extreme. I mean, thankfully it wasn't that extreme, but man, that's creepy.
That's crazy. Yeah. But that's a thing in Germany. It's so many of the laws in Germany, basically stem from the lessons they learned before World War II.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting stuff. So continue. So the recruiter.
So the recruiter saw me.
It was a Marine recruiter.
It was a Marine recruiter. Of course, there's Air Force, Army, Navy. They're all there.
Yeah.
The Marine recruiter got my attention because I thought they had the best uniforms. And
they are cool uniforms.
In comparison to all the others, I was like, oh, wow, they got a pretty cool uniform. And then there was the eye contact. And I was like, uh-oh, he sees me. I guess I have to say something to the guy, Started having a regular conversation. I eventually ended up going to the actual recruiting station to get some information. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a pretty quick decision because there were a few things that I knew in my head at the time. And one was, all right, I'm 17. I'm in my senior year of high school, and I really do need to start thinking about what is next. Mm-hmm. And I knew with my grades, I wasn't really focused on school so much, and I knew I wasn't going to go to college. Mm-hmm. I knew I wasn't going there for studies, for athletics, or nothing like that. So I said, maybe the military is an opportunity. My dad did it. My brother did it. I'm in the peak of wrestling season, so I feel like I can take on the world in the physical sense.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the right decision. We sat down with my mom at our apartment. The recruiter came by to say, all right, is this something you really want to do? And then I was like, yeah, sure. I think so. I think I want to do that. And my mom looked at me because she had to sign the waiver because I was still 17.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she's like, are you sure you want to do this? And I was like, yep. And she looked at me for a second. She said, okay. And then she signed that. And there I was in the delayed entry program that November, right after 9/11. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, November 2001.
Okay.
And
Holy
then,
smoke.
yeah, so I was gone a month after graduating from high school, down to Paris Island, those classic yellow footprints. That was organized chaos, is what I'll say. Stepping off the bus.
Yeah.
I don't know how one or two people can have so much control over so many people at once.
Yeah.
And everybody's just moving in one direction, moving in the same direction. I find that amazing to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the entry story.
The tension in the military. I mean, you didn't really know what the tension, what it was like before 9/11, but I was living in New York during 9/11, and it was, I couldn't believe a single event could paralyze the city like that.
Yeah.
It was such a scary time for me. I can't imagine what that was like for, people going into the military at that point, because, so this was before then, I guess, George W., he said he was going to hunt down the terrorists, but was there deployment into Afghanistan at that point?
I want to say already in 2001, they started moving troops over right away. And then 2003, they started moving troops into Iraq. Right. On top of, already the Afghanistan war. Because I know they kept saying this the 20-year war last year. So I think 2001 was already go time.
Yeah.
Almost as soon as it happened. Who knows how soon we were already over there afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How long is basic training?
So boot camp.
Boot camp.
Yeah, recruit training would be the technical term, but everybody knows boot camp. Basically, same. It's all the same. It was 13 weeks. I would say in retrospect, if I knew better, looking at my experience in the Marines and looking at the other branches, the Air Force would have been probably the best way to go, because they have the most locations. They made more than us. Everything was done, on a co-ed basis, whereas in the Marines, it's like you have the longer boot camp. It's you're completely separated from the, from everyone, women particularly. There's no women around in sight, and so that was like and then you're just going through this 13-week hell. And it's just like, man, if I would have only done 6 weeks, learned how to fold my underwear, and maybe shoot a weapon and go on a jog or two, I'd be all right, No, but it was fun. I mean, that's all jokes. But
the things that really challenge us in life, I believe, are good.
Yeah.
There's a phrase, it's like, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, kind of thing.
For sure.
I've struggled with this, like with my kids, because we are in this very sort of compassionate time about, their needs and wants and desires and things like that. And you think about my parents, and then my parents' parents, your parents and your parents' parents, and, the kind of discipline that was
forked
enforced,
out.
Doled out, It's really a strange time to be a parent.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've had that discussion with, it's generational and it's also cultural, so in terms of how I would say punishment would be doled out. So I would say maybe a kid in the 80s or 90s in the States would get a different punishment maybe than a kid in the 80s or 90s here. Right. In certain parts of Germany. Corporal punishment per se.
Yeah.
That's not a thing.
Even the school teachers. I mean, so my dad was a public school music teacher, but he could lay down a hammer when there was discipline to be doled out.
Okay.
So in the 70s, I'm just a kid, 7 years old, 8 years old, and I'm going into his music room. He had this big music room with an office, and I would just go in there and like hang out, or I would like bang on the drums and stuff like that. And one day I walked by his desk, and you know what was there? A freaking paddle. Like a paddle that you do nothing else but hit kids with.
One purpose.
There is no other purpose for this paddle. You know what they look like, these discipline paddles. He had one of those. And I said, Dad, like, what do you do with it? Because, I mean, he'd never paddled me.
Right.
I don't think my dad ever hit me. that's something like you don't forget. My mom hit me once or twice, I remember, but not my dad. And I said, what are you doing with this? And he says, oh, I scare the kids with that. I was like, what do you mean you scare them? And he says, well, when they act out, they get a warning. And then after the second time I say, okay, you either get the paddle or you get detention. And they always choose detention.
That's
because my dad is a pretty big guy too. I mean, they could just imagine, taking a swing at their butt,
Yeah.
So they always choose detention. And then the funny thing was, the end of that story is, I came in a couple of months later, and of course I wanted to check out the paddle, So I go over to the paddle. It's in pieces.
Wow, what did it?
And I was like, I almost with tears in my eyes. I was like, Dad, what did you do? And he goes, oh, don't worry about that. I lost my temper. I hit the desk with it, and it just blew apart into pieces.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
Yeah,
that would scare some kids straight, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So,
man.
Okay, I don't want to get too off topic here. I really want to get into the whole Marine Corps experience that you had, because like on your Facebook page, you got some amazing photos on there. Of your colleagues and you in uniform and you in different locations around the world, which I'm sure the armed forces provided you with that opportunity. And I'm very fascinated with the armed forces, and especially when it comes to the younger generation. One thing I am in favor of is mandatory military service. Now, it doesn't have to be the Marine Corps. It doesn't even have to be 13 weeks.
Right.
And it also doesn't have to be like infantry training. I'm okay with, all the armed forces now, they have, wings of entertainment. They have music.
Yeah.
You can
go into
you can go into music. You can be in a military
100%.
band. You can be in a military choir, things like that. And I'm even down with that. But being out on your own, like my freshman year of college, it was a complete waste because I didn't know how to basically organize myself.
Yeah.
And I was such on this high of like, not being under my parents' eye anymore, that I just sort of did stuff that was not really beneficiary to me.
Right. Hey, we're all young at some point.
I mean, we all have stuff like that.
Absolutely.
You have to learn life lessons. I mean, and college is really good for that. But really, my freshman year was a wasted year. I think I would have done a lot better had I been in some kind of, arm of the military. If it was sort of like a mandatory service where everybody had to go, and this is just something you had to get through. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean,
think about that?
I wouldn't be for mandatory military because of the numbers that we have. We're able to join on a voluntary basis. I know that I think in Germany, I'm not sure if it's still a thing where it's mandatory military service.
It's not.
No?
Not in Germany.
Because I think there was one point where you had to do, it was like at least 2 years or something like that.
It was, well, I don't know. I have to ask my girlfriend because she's from the East.
Right.
In the East, I'm pretty sure it kept going until the wall came down, that there was military service, mandatory military service. But in the West, I think it went away at some point, but I'm not sure when. But actually, this is an interesting tidbit, which you might know already because you're working at the embassy and stuff like that. Berlin, it was very hard for the West Germans to get people to live in Berlin. The population was kind of low. So in like the late 60s, early 70s, they gave an incentive to young kids. If you move to Berlin, your address becomes Berlin, you don't have to do mandatory military service. And of course, what are the kinds of people that want to get out of mandatory military service? Well, a lot of artists.
Yeah.
Singers, directors, musicians, dancers, and that, maybe it's just a theory, but I mean, I'm sure there's data to back this up. I mean, that's why, in Berlin, we just have this plethora of culture.
Yeah.
From
absolutely.
my standpoint, an opera singer, and there are 3 A-level houses. So an A-level house is like, the size of like the Chicago Lyric, the Metropolitan, Houston Grand Opera in the States. We have 3 of those. Now, the Metropolitan serves 13 million people in New York City. And if you want to count the metro area, you're talking 25 million people, you know? Mm-hmm. And here you have 3 A houses the size of the Metropolitan, not seating wise, but schedule wise.
Right. Mm-hmm.
3 A houses in one city, that's barely 4 million people.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
That's pretty crazy.
And these places they're like sold out.
Yeah.
The Deutsche Oper Berlin's the biggest opera house in Germany. Mm-hmm. And it's frequently sold out.
I've been there once. The Deutsche, that's the one on Ernst Reuter, right? Over there in that corner almost.
They're all on the same street.
True. Well, the Staatsoper.
The Staatsoper is unter den Linden.
And then,
the Komische Oper is sort of like,
right.
The front door is actually behind unter den Linden, but the building is actually on unter den Linden. Yeah. And then if you go through the gate and you continue on, that's Bismarckstrasse, and that's where Deutsche Oper is.
Yeah. I went there once. I saw the Nutcracker. That was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was really nice. It was just after Christmas that year. I can't remember how long ago that was, but that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I think the Staatsoper puts on a good Nutcracker as well.
I can't remember. I don't know if I've ever been in the Staatsoper. I've been to the Concerthaus, but I don't know if I've ever been to the Staatsoper.
It was under construction for a few years.
I remember that.
So they were performing in the Schiller, but now the construction is done, and it's gorgeous. It's like a jewel box inside.
Good. It's
kind of small, but the acoustics are fantastic. And I love the Komische Oper. I love that building, but unfortunately they're going to move out of that building because they're going to do a big renovation. It's supposed to last, I don't know, 5 years, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah, you know how renovations go in Berlin.
Yeah, I think they're going into the Schiller as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so you're in the Marines. You did 13 weeks of recruitment training.
Recruit training, yeah, absolutely.
Recruit training, all right. And I want to get the terminology right at least. And then they station you, right?
So yeah, you go out based on your jobs. You sign up for a job before you go in. So, being in the military is like being in a little city.
Yeah.
Or a little planet really. And you can do all sorts of things. You can be a cook, you can be a driver, you can be a mechanic, you can be a communicator. There's all sorts of jobs. Okay. Like I said, it's a self-sustaining world. Yeah. Literally on the inside, each base. So each base is more or less designed that you don't have to leave it if you don't want to. That's that's basically what the base is. So everything is there. I was a communicator, or I signed up to be a communicator. I didn't know what that meant when I signed up. You take this entry-level test, the ASVAB they call it. And based on what you score on your ASVAB, these are the different jobs that are available to you based on your score. So the ASVAB kind of tests a little bit of everything, a little mini general studies kind of test, testing your different knowledge in different trades. How much do you know about electrics or electronics or electricity, voltage, math, science. Okay, just think about anything. And they throw it all on a test. I scored about the average score at the time.
Okay.
Which opened me up to a lot of different opportunities. A communicator was one of them, and that's the one they gave me. I think you got like 3 choices, and I put 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So communicator, what that meant, that covers a broad spectrum. Covers radio, covers telecommunications, covers satellite, covers all these different things. And I went into the telecommunications portion.
Okay.
So after 13 weeks of craziness, they'll send you to combat training, which is a follow-on for 3 weeks. And there you get to learn how to be a basic rifleman because every Marine is a rifleman, they say. So you go through combat training, you learn how to use different weapons. Pretty cool in some cases if you like using weapons. Yeah. I liked using weapons because I was into the gaming at the time, like with the GoldenEye and the Perfect Dark and all that. So it was actually, it felt like, I'm playing a video game when I'm out here and I'm shooting these targets. This is actually kind of fun. Didn't want to go out and destroy people. Definitely. Not that definitely wasn't. But going out to the range and just, blowing up targets and throwing grenades and doing that stuff. It was actually kind of cool. But anyways, you do that for 3 weeks and then they send you to whatever your trade is, whether it's administration, etc. And I went to 29 Palms, California, right in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And I'll never forget, we flew into LAX. It was nighttime. And then I woke up in the morning and I look outside and we're sitting kind of on this hill, the barracks that we were in, and blue sky, mountain, brown. And I was just like, ooh. Really cool sight at first, but gets old extremely quick. It gets really old.
Wow.
Because that is what it looked like every day. It was pretty scenery when I look back on it, but I was another world and we were in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was about a 3-hour drive from LA. Okay. And the closest thing to us was Palm Springs, which is about a 45-minute drive if you had a car.
Right.
So, that was... the Marines in that sense was really good for me because, in the short story, the Marines is, the reason why I'm here now. And it was an opportunity for me to get out, to find my way. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I knew 2 things. I knew I wanted to get out of the house and I knew I wanted to travel. Anything else, it came as it came.
Did you get a degree through the Marines, through the military?
Yes, in a way. I studied from 2011 to 2014, so that's when I got out. Mm-hmm. But I got the Montgomery GI Bill while I was in, and that paid for all my tuition.
Great,
which was really awesome. Exactly.
That is awesome.
And it was actually fun after I got out the military. It's 8 years later.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself like, well, I do, young Jamaal, thank you for investing.
Yeah.
Because that was one of those things they were yelling at you about in boot camp saying, hey, sign up for the GI Bill. It costs this much. You put in $100 a payday for 12 months. And it was like, okay, yeah, I guess, I wasn't making money before that. So any money was good money. So I was like, yeah, I can spare $100, Okay. They're providing everything for us,
right,
in terms of housing, food. Mm-hmm. So I threw that money in. There was another point about a couple years later where they said if you throw in an extra $600, then you can get this much more money included in your already GI Bill. So I was like, okay, there's young Jamaal again talking to future Jamaal saying, yeah, throw the $600 in there. I'm not sure how much the overall cost of the bachelor's degree was, but all I know is the GI Bill kept on forking it out as long as I was going to school full time, on top of giving me some money on the side. Okay, you're a full-time student. We'll pay for your school and you'll get this much money monthly for your studies.
Wow.
Which was, it was a great deal. Yeah.
That's huge.
So yeah, for sure I took advantage of that. After when, of course, you get a little older, you get a little wiser. You start to take advantage of those things that, can set you up for a better future.
Right. So did you get stationed then in foreign countries?
Yeah. So from 29 Palms, I remember we had our wish lists going around and we can pick 3 different places. We can pick California, we can pick North Carolina, or we can go to Okinawa. Okay. And that was a pretty simple choice for me. So
yeah, that's sort of a no-brainer.
Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of the guys that I was with, and a lot of us at home were comfortable being home. Mm-hmm. So a lot of guys are like, oh, I want to go to Camp Pendleton because I'm from Orange County, so I'm close to home. Or, some people said, no, North Carolina, that's East Coast. I'm not too far from home. Okay. If you were from Carolina or anywhere on the East Coast. And I was like, you guys are nuts, man. Like, let's go to, sign me up for Japan. I think I was the only one in class that picked Japan. So guess who the only one that got Japan was?
Oh, my gosh.
I was excited, awesome. And I'm like, wow, here we go. I saw the orders and I'm like, wow. I just turned, I was 18. Okay. At the time, and I'm going to Japan.
Wow!
You take that super long flight. Oh man, I never want to do that. That was the worst. Flying from LA to Osaka or Tokyo or something. That is the never-ending flight.
Yeah.
But excellent experience. Got to spend 2.5 years over there, and all in between. Another thing that you learned about while you were in Japan, and it's not like it was something I was trying to avoid, but most Marines deploy. Marines deploy all the time. So if you're in Camp Pendleton, that was the 1st Marine Division. If you're in Camp Lejeune, that's the 2nd Marine Division, and they would constantly rotate. So 6 months in, 6 months out, 6 months in, 6 months out. But it was only the Marines that were stateside that were mostly doing that. Okay. While the Marines in Japan, we were in 3rd Marine Division. If you had to go on an expeditionary unit, so you had to go on ship if you wanted to go to a place like Iraq or Afghanistan, right? Because we were more or less the reserve unit. So if things were happening in the States, that were too much, then they would start to send in the Marines from Okinawa.
Okay.
But our primary role was to focus on the Pacific operations, because we had a lot of things going on in the Pacific as well, working with the Korean military, working with the Philippines military, the Australian armies, and all these other militaries, which was a great experience because you get to go to these countries, meet these people, work with these people, see something different, experience their culture. It was a great few years. Just getting the opportunity to see these places and experience life a bit in a different way. Yeah,
Okinawa it's an island. It's not mainland Japan,
no,
right?
It's definitely not mainland. Okay. It's about 2 hours from mainland south. So it was literally on the same latitude as Florida. So it was nice. It was very much like being home. Okay. You know, the nice, warm, a lot of the humidity. Yeah. Green hills. Green mountains, beaches. It was a beautiful place.
Do you follow politically, like what's going on in that region now? This sort of South China Sea, and I mean, of course, there's always North Korea has been,
of course,
rattling their saber for decades now. Yeah. But recently it's been this what China's been doing in the South China Sea. I mean, They've been building islands to put airstrips on there, and threatening Filipino ships and things like that. I mean, it's and of course it's dangerous because the United States is backing the Philippines. They have a lot of investment there militarily. It's not good.
No, that's never a good thing.
It's very there's a lot of tension. In that area.
Yeah, there's a lot of volatility around. Everywhere, I mean, not too far from here to the east, it's getting a little hot. You're north of the Russian border, Ukraine.
That was something I wanted to talk to you about too, because I know you're not going to be able to tell me what's going on inside the embassy, but maybe you can. It feels like it's warming up. Mm-hmm. I went online and I read Anthony Blinken's entire. He's the Secretary of State of the United States. He was in Berlin and did a long talk. Yeah, and I read the whole thing last night, and What did you happen to see it or hear it or read it? Yeah,
I definitely heard it. And when it comes to that kind of information, I know as much as you do. Believe it or not. It was quite the speech that he gave here, and it highlighted basically where we are, not necessarily how we got there, because of course you can look at it both ways. Okay, why is Russia being the way they are? Why is the U.S. being the way they are? And then if you really delve into the information, there's arguments for both sides.
Right.
However, it's not a good situation in any case.
Yeah.
There's no winner for anything, that goes south.
Right.
Whether it's them, whether it's us, nobody wins a conflict.
Yeah.
In that sense. So I hope things don't escalate.
Yeah. Blinken brought up this idea of the escalation as to and why, and because and he cited a lot of things that happened in the past, Russia invading Georgia a few years ago.
Yep.
And then Crimea, very quite recently actually, and then there are these conflict zones like Transnistria in Moldova, where there's just 100,000 Russian military families living there.
Yeah.
Sort of against the will of the country of Moldova, and that prevents Moldova from joining the EU. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Ukraine.
Right.
They can't join the EU. And I think this is what Putin, this is what it seems to be. That's what Putin wants, is that to disable the idea that they can join the EU.
Yeah. That puts the NATO on their doorstep, and I think that's something that he's not trying to have.
Yeah. Blinken is always saying, he said a few times, that NATO is a defensive organization. they didn't invade anybody. Or did they? I don't know.
No, it's not that. I mean, I wouldn't say NATO invaded, but NATO certainly expanded from its original, establishment in the late 40s when they, were saying, all right, now we need to unite as a front because we are living in two different worlds. Russia's living in their world. They're still a superpower. We're the U.S. We're living in our world. We need to band together and we need to coexist somehow.
Right.
Of course, so then NATO was born for that purpose of maintaining that sense of security from maybe, conflict that could be, imminent. The Cold War, thankfully, there wasn't really any major, I would say, war that came out of it, like an actual war. Didn't get hot. Hence, it's the Cold War.
Right.
But it was still a time where everything wasn't crystal clear. Nothing was 100% like. It wasn't like it is now, where we kind of know where we stand.
Right.
You could
make an argument, and I've heard the argument before as why do we still have NATO? Why did NATO continue to exist after the fall of the Soviet Union?
Good question.
I mean, fear, of course.
Yeah, you could chalk it up to fear. I mean, who knows, really? I mean, obviously that was the what was that, 90, 89, 90? 91. Yeah, when the when the wall came down, it was 89 the wall came down, but 91 the Soviet Union.
Right.
Okay,
so
into the
really
Soviet
ceased
Union
to exist, yeah.
Who knows? I mean, I think it was so entrenched, who knows that they say, I'm not sure what the funding was or at that time to say, okay, did they actually have a conversation about ending and saying, okay, the Soviet Union is no more. Do we really need this? Who knows if that conversation happened? I'm not sure. I'm not privy to it. That would have been in Clinton's era.
Right.
When he started, and if that was ever something that was brought up, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, militaries in general, especially the U.S. military, they're not so much in favor of pulling back.
Yeah, there's go ahead.
They don't want to sort of defund. They're not into defunding. They're not into minimizing or things like that. So.
Yeah, it's a big military we have, and I mean, I would say in my particular situation, I'm happy with what I'm happy with what I got out of the military and what the military provided for me in terms of just getting my life started, giving me direction, sending me places. But of course, I've been out of the military now for 11 years. Yeah, coming up on 12 years, and I've gotten to see both sides of the picture.
Right.
So, where do you draw the line in terms of, our impact globally? Are we needed? Was it the right decision for Joe to get us out of Afghanistan? Was, all these different things you can discuss when it comes to military. Okay, now we have this possibility of things escalating here to our immediate east that hopefully don't. It's a big puzzle. It's a huge industry. And yeah, that's definitely another layer.
Yeah, Blinken, he also mentioned this, the fact that Russia went back on their promise with this INF treaty. That's about the placement of missiles, like medium-range missiles. And basically what he said, which freaked me out when I read it, was that these missiles are in place now that they could hit targets in Germany. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
Nobody wins a conflict.
We'll
say that. An attack on an ally is an attack on everyone.
Yeah.
So if something were to happen here next door, where obviously anyone is capable of being, struck, it's not a good thing. And I mean, Berlin, being Berlin, I wouldn't call it the safest area to be if something were to erupt, just because of the, again, he talked about that historical context of Berlin, like, okay, I chose this place to make this speech for a reason, dating back to, the historical connection between Russia and the U.S. and Germany.
Right.
And, when I thought about that and when he said that, I was like, oh man, please don't make Berlin please don't bring too much attention to Berlin right now while we're here, you know. But obviously, you know, it's a very small world in that sense. We are on very historical grounds. This place has changed so much in such a short time. I mean, less than 100 years, you can think of all the crazy that's happened to this city.
Just incredible, right?
And, you know, just kind of reflecting on the history, you know, it's really kudos to the Germans just for how they do bring history to life and how they use it as an example. You know, we're, you know, looking at American history, you know, we're still trying to hide it in some ways. I mean, it's out there. We know it's out there, but, you know, it's like shame. No, don't talk about that. It's just like, no, do talk about that. We should be talking about these things, and everyone knows about the history here. The Germans memorialize these things so that people can learn from it. People can see it. You know, this is a super tourist destination. I worked temporarily as a tour director, and I got to show people some of these things. And, you know, you can't do this city. You can't see all of this city in just a couple of days like they used to come through. You would need a good couple weeks if you really want to see everything, or at least not everything, but at least a good amount of things.
I've been here almost 12 years and I haven't seen everything.
Exactly. Same. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway.
It seems like Putin really wants this buffer zone. Between Western Europe and, you know, the motherland of Russia. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does invade Ukraine. You know, now how he does it is what's going to be what's going to determine whether it turns into a hot conflict or not, I think. Because he has all the means necessary to do it diplomatically, you know? Why can't, you know, there's no reason why he can't go and have a meeting with Ukraine and say, I want to discuss merging our two countries in a diplomatic way. Let's start the negotiation about that. You know? And, you know, with the right kind of deal that benefits the Ukraine, could benefit them, you know, maybe economically, and, you know, to be latched on to a bigger country like that could be a great thing. I don't know. But, I mean, they're not even discussing that, you know. Instead, he just rattles his saber by, you know, moving all these troops, you know. And basically, he's scaring the world right now with actions like that.
It's very unpredictable, you know, and that's the scary part about it is we do know what potentially can happen. And I know that after Blinken left Berlin, you know, they had the other, you know, he had that discussion with the prime minister of Russia. And I don't think that was a fruitful conversation based on the reports. So, you know, it kind of seemed like, you know, there was an ultimatum being laid like, hey, play ball, or this is what the alternative is, for better or worse. But nobody wants the worse. And yeah, again, it's just, very, very crappy situation. And, you know, my hopes, and I'm sure most people's hopes, is that it doesn't escalate. Because again, nobody wins that. Anyway.
I know. From your Facebook page, I also learned that you're a big UFC guy. Yeah, me too. I love it. But I often get this sort of mental image that Russia thinks they're that UFC fighter on his back, kicking up. You know. And it's like those kicks are hard to land. It seems. But when you land one,
that's lights out.
It's effective.
It's very effective.
So Russia's kicking up. They're on their but I don't see them like that. You know, I think that's just the way they kind of see and I shouldn't say Russians. I should say it's the government. It's really
the government.
It's really Putin that sees himself like that. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, was it also in Blinken's speech where he said like, you know, Putin has referred to Ukraine as not a real country, like it's really part of Russia. We just need to bring it back into the fold, kind of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, it's this buffer zone that they want. And if you look historically, I mean, that makes sense because Russia has been invaded so many times, you know, back even before Napoleon existed. And Napoleon famously, you know, invaded as well.
Much to his detriment.
Much to everyone's. It didn't work out for anybody who tried to invade. So,
That's true.
Yeah, didn't work out for anyone. They're still there.
Germans.
So, unless you bring your winter coat, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's a different level up there of cold.
Yeah. So how did you get to Berlin then? What brought you to Berlin?
Like I said, mentioned briefly before, the Marines ultimately brought me here when I was working as a Marine security guard. So basically, that's a special duty assignment you can get while you're in the Marines. You can become a drill instructor.
Okay.
Put on your best Full Metal Jacket impression. No.
Yeah.
You can become a recruiter. Those lucky guys that found me, or you can go on to the Marine Security Guard program.
Okay.
And much like my earlier aspirations, you can travel with the Marine Security Guard program. You're literally going from, we have embassies and consulates all over the world, so you can end up at any one of these countries. Mm-hmm. And that was, an exciting time when I was, going through that schooling, which was in Quantico. So you kind of get to experience that DC area a bit. And I remember they started going through the posts because we got to pick, we had to put in a wish list, and we can pick a region of the world we wanted to go to. You couldn't pick which place you wanted to go, not out of the schoolhouse. They didn't let you go that far because priority went to the people who were already out and doing their time.
Sure.
So they said, all right, you guys are noobs, so you could pick a region and we'll send you there if there's an opening. And I remember picking South America, which no one in the class got. I picked Eastern Europe. And then I picked Western Europe, I think. You could pick 3 regions.
Okay.
And so I ended up getting Ankara, Turkey. Eastern Europe.
Okay.
So, but I remember there was a little controversy at the time was because there was 2 Williams in the class. And so the master sergeant's at the front of the classroom yelling out our names and our posts. And he's like, Williams, Frankfurt. And I was like, and he's like, Williams, Ankara. And we're like, which Williams, Master Sergeant? He's like, Williams J. And then we're like, yeah, he's Jeremy, I'm Jamaal. That doesn't help. So he's like, come see me after. We're like, all right. And then he said, all right, Jeremy, you're going to Frankfurt. Jamaal, you're going to Ankara. I'm like, huh? Okay, what's Ankara? I never heard of
Where's Ankara?
I never heard of that. So, we had a library, and I went there, and I said, oh, okay, that's in Turkey. Okay, and this is the country I'm going to. Pretty cool. Why not?
Yeah.
Came to an amazing community.
What year is this now?
This was 2006.
Okay.
And had an amazing set of Marines that we all coexisted really well. That was probably one of the tightest units I've ever been in terms of just everyone getting along, everyone knowing what they were supposed to do. And that usually creates for, a lot of good free time because everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And in the military, that's crucial. Do your job, and everybody's do what you want in your free time, and nobody's going to bother you as long as you're doing your job.
Right.
When you're not doing your job, that's when the games start, not the fun ones. So,
right.
We got to, experience, that was my first time kind of seeing what the embassy lifestyle was like, getting to meet people again for the first time outside of the military bubble that we were living in. One person comes up to me and knocks on the door and says, hey, what's your name? And I'm like, Corporal Williams. I have a placard outside that says Corporal Williams on there. No, she's like, no, what's your name? And I'm like, that's right, I have a first name, Jamaal. And she's like, hi, welcome to Turkey. And I was like, oh, wow. And that for me was kind of like a whoa moment, like,
yeah,
damn, I'm not being called by my last name. They actually they're talking to me like I'm I wasn't used to that. I've been 4 years in Okinawa, and you live in, again, it's a little planet in there. So you're used to the lingo. Everything is, based on that world that you're living in. Right.
Very structured.
And now now we're dealing with regular people again. Right. And I'm like, and then at that time I had just re-enlisted. So I had a fresh 4 years, and I'm thinking to myself like, man, I forgot what it was like out there. Like, and that little introduction that just kind of was like a little, little needle that just popped that bubble. Like, man, there is life outside. I forgot about that. And at that moment, I didn't know which direction I was going to go in. But at that point, I kind of made a decision in my head to say, you know what? I might think about, I need to start thinking about what I'm going to do after the military. Mm-hmm. I would always communicate with the people within, whether it was also fellow Marines that were planning on getting out. And I think at the time, the Marines that were on the program had about a 10% retention rate. So most of the Marines that went on that program ended up getting out.
Okay.
Whether it was probably because of the people they were meeting, because you do meet a lot of cool people, a lot of people that are willing to help you out, point you in the right direction. Okay, if you want to do this, this is what you have to do. People give you their cards and, say, hey, reach out, when it's time.
Yeah, that's
and they're
cool.
happy to talk to you. So that eventually brought me to Berlin for my third tour. My second tour was in Cairo after Ankara. Then I came to Berlin. And that's what got me started here in 2008.
Were you still wrestling at this point? They have like a wrestling club in club.
No, all good. No, they do call them clubs here. So
okay.
I started wrestling in the military when I was still in Okinawa. We had some open tournaments. We actually did have a buddy of mine. He was on the national team as well. His name is Jake Clark. He was an 84-kilogram wrestler for the world team in the U.S. And he also happened to be a Marine as well. Okay. He put an ad in the local Marine newspaper saying, "Hey, I'm in Okinawa. If anybody's interested in coming out to meet, we can start some wrestling club.
Cool.
And we can catch up." And that actually at that time, I think he was in Okinawa for about 6 months, and he was looking for talent. And we had a lot of camps and a lot of tournaments. He would only referee the tournament because he was next level. He did not need to be competing in these tournaments.
Okay.
So he would be a referee, but he was really looking and seeing what kind of talent he can bring back to DC because the Marines did have a wrestling team. And these are the teams that compete in these Armed Forces Championships.
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And
that's a big thing, yeah.
And if you compete at the Armed Forces Championships, you win those, you qualify for the World Team Trials. They take those guys from the Armed Forces Championships, and you can wrestle at the highest level.
Wow, that's cool.
Which he was, which was amazing. So it was good that he was there. We had a lot of fun. But
I can't wait any longer.
Do it.
Sorry. It's like this. He brought some Lagavulin 16, and it's like my favorite scotch of all time.
Feel free.
Here we go.
Get that
Cigawi.
What else? No, but in Berlin, I was able to find a wrestling club that I did just for fun. Again, when you're doing MSG duty or Marine Security Guard duty, you're not, the time commitment to do sports is secondary.
Can you pass me the water, please?
Yeah.
I usually do I do my scotch with a little splash.
Yeah, you can do it with
Releases the flavor.
Let me get a little something
a bit.
Myself.
All right, good. I'll wait.
Actually, no. Let me try that one if you don't mind.
The
Balvenie?
Yeah, of course.
That's a new one.
Dig in.
It's a new one.
It's really great. It's got a great. I mean, it's on the smoky side, like the Lagavulin.
Much in my direction.
Yep. Me too. But it has a kind of sweetness to it as well because of the sherry cask that they. Yeah. You like it? It's a good smell, yeah? Yeah. So you take it neat?
I go pure. Most of the time I always go pure because I want to see it in its most natural state. Get the most out of it.
All right. Cheers.
Enjoy.
All right.
Enjoy.
Oh, man, that is fan-freaking-tastic.
Oh, yeah.
Woo!
Now that we're here, actually, what's your personal favorite?
Personal favorite, I would say all time is the Lagavulin 16.
Yeah?
I really just...
Awesome.
I love that. I always get a bottle for my birthday.
Nice.
If someone doesn't buy me one, I buy it myself. I'm like, this is my birthday present
Good
for
stuff.
myself.
There you go. You got to treat yourself.
Yeah, but my close friends know, so they get a bottle to me somehow.
Good.
Yeah, I'm sort of doing special occasions because it's not cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
It's not cheap. No. You can get in some trouble. If you're sort of having one or two glasses of that every night, boy, your wallet's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, they're not cheap. I usually, I don't know how many whiskeys I've gotten. Most of them are gifted, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, when I have a birthday and people want to buy me something, they'll sometimes get me a bottle of whiskey. My wife is very, a big part of the collection that we have.
Oh, nice. Good.
And she knows what kind of whiskeys I prefer. I do prefer my scotches a little more peated, such as the Lagavulin.
It's the I don't know how do they say that, but the Islay?
Isla.
They say Isla?
Isla.
Okay, so it looks like Islay.
I used to always say Islay, and then I heard it.
Yeah,
like,
but like,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just never knew. I never knew. So, okay. So, so the Isla, it's not a region. It's the way they make it, right?
Isla is the island.
Oh, okay.
And that's the area. So, it's an island of Isla.
Yeah, they tend to be on the smokier side.
Most of their whiskeys tend to be more in the peated direction. I personally do like a lot of the whiskeys that come from Isla. Lefroy is a big brand as well.
Yep, that's a good one.
And my personal favorite is the Triple Wood. So that's why this one caught my eye when I saw it up there. And I was like, I'm going to take a picture of this because maybe this has, that smoky, woody yumminess to it that I'm looking for that I really like.
It's nice. I never tried the Triple Wood.
I would highly recommend it.
Okay,
If you like the Lagavulin, then you'll love the Triple Wood.
Okay.
And if you like this, you'll really love the Triple Wood because it does have it's called Triple Wood because of course it goes through the 3 barrels.
Right.
It starts in a bourbon and then it goes to a quarter cask where it really gets that woodiness to it and it really gets a lot of its smoke. And then in that third is the nice sherry finish.
Okay.
So it does have like a nice mwah at the very end of it, but it has a super intense, just a really, really intense flavor, but it's not overwhelming in a bad way. Because you don't want too much where it's like, oh, when you drink it, because there are whiskeys like that.
Right.
I've also had a Lefroy like that where I was just like, ooh, that's good, but man,
that's too much. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah,
I love the Scotch. I guess it wasn't until I was maybe 30 when I started just having a glass of Scotch every once in a while. But it's nice. Gives you, for me, I mean, it's really different from beer. I love beer, but if I'm drinking beer a lot, I put on a lot of weight.
Beer can do that.
Yeah.
Beer belly.
And also what's been happening like with my singing, I guess because like the sphincter to my stomach is like loosened now because with singing, you're dealing with like a lot of what we call subglottal pressure. The glottis is right here. It's right below your vocal cords. And that's sort of what it does is it sort of weakens the sphincter that leads to your stomach a little bit. So I would get like acid reflux if I'm drinking like a couple beers, even 3 or 4, like spread out accordingly, or if I'm like having food with it, stuff like that. But if I get into a habit of like, I don't know, I go like 2 or 3 or 4 nights where I'm having like 2 or 3 beers kind of thing. It's like I won't even be able to sleep because the acid reflux is so bad, And I think that's more from like the bubbles. I don't drink a lot of stuff that has bubbles.
I'm not a big carbonation.
Yeah.
Like I don't drink a lot of soda. I can't really do water with gas, which is very European.
Yeah.
So when I first got here, I asked for water and I got this gas water. I was like, whoa. Yeah. I mean, in general, gas, carbonation isn't mine. But yeah, every now and again, I have to have it with lots of ice, so it takes away some of that carbonation. I guess I'm a little too American in that sense when it comes to the carbonation.
I enjoy the still water as well.
Yes.
But like with the Scotch, I just get this really mellow, a really mellow buzz. It doesn't even feel like a buzz. Like I get a different kind of buzz if I'm drinking like a margarita or a screwdriver. I love screwdrivers too. But with the Scotch, it just kind of like, it's like listening to smooth jazz.
It really is nice. In good company
really
and you having
nice.
A nice Scotch, it's really difficult to beat.
And for me, like my brain goes a million miles an hour. Especially, it seems like when things start to get quiet, like especially at night, my brain like turns on. And just like even just one glass, even just a half of glass of Scotch, it just kind of like turns everything low. Just crawl in the bed and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
calms you down a little.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm like thinking like, oh, what about? Oh, I got hockey tomorrow. Oh, I'm gonna try this move out. Oh, what happened last time? Oh, and I got to do this thing with singing. Oh, and I got to do. Oh, and my kids and my girlfriend and all this other stuff. It's just like runs through my head constantly. So anyway.
Yeah, there's actually a not too far from here in Schöneberg. There's a place called I want to say it's called the Whiskey Market. And that's where I really got interested more in whiskeys, because I always liked a whiskey, but I knew nothing of whiskeys. Yeah. And one of my buddies actually here as well, he's also American. He set us up with a whiskey tasting over here at the I think it's at the Whiskey Cabinet maybe it's called.
Okay.
And I just remember it was in Schöneberg, and one thing I could recommend is never do a whiskey tasting before going to the movie theater. That was a horrible idea.
Oh,
that was when Skyfall came out. So this is around that time frame, whatever year that was. But I remember we did that whiskey tasting, went to see Skyfall, and I think I saw the first 5 minutes. I saw an explosion, and then I woke up and I was like, oh shit, the credits. I just wasted all that money.
Yeah, if you're thinking, definitely, it's definitely a drink that I enjoy like after 11. Mm-hmm. After 11 or 12 at night, then because I mean, it really does kind of take you out.
It slows things down a little bit.
If you got some serious work you want to do, you don't want to be paying bills after a glass.
You don't want to be writing a paper.
You don't want to be. Yeah, you have to be careful with Facebook too, because you could like drunk dial someone.
Don't hit send.
Yeah,
don't hit send. Right?
No, don't ever hit send after a glass of scotch. Just don't get into it. It's a bad idea.
Oh, man. Horrible.
So, this stuff is probably not classified information, but on your Facebook page, you got some great photos of you standing in front of Air Force One.
Yeah.
Marine One. I'm assuming that's Marine One.
Correct.
The helicopter,
yep.
Marine helicopter that takes the president back and forth from the White House to Dulles.
No. I'm not sure where that thing goes from stateside, because that was actually here in Berlin. That was at Tegel.
Okay.
That was 2008 when George W. came through.
Mm-hmm.
Had a get together with Angela Merkel at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in on Air Force One. Naturally, we actually got to go there to get our photo taken with him. So we all have a photo memory of that, us standing there together in suits. Bush standing in front of us, and he kind of came up to us one at a time. And for the most part, when it comes to higher ranking officials, we always say sir. That's a normal thing.
Of course.
But I saw that, of course, at the time as my moment, because he's going through us one at a time. And he's like, "Hi, son, how you doing?" And I was like, "Mr. President." I had to say Mr. President because I always used to see that in the movies. I was like, I always wanted to say that to the president. Like, you only get one chance in your life, maybe, to do that. He actually looked at me kind of funny when I did that, but he was like, anyways, because I don't think he was expecting that. But
that's great.
Couldn't help it.
That's great.
And that same year, we also met. I think it was already a month later, because that was June of 2008. And then we did the grand opening of the embassy in 2008, July, so the month after, and his dad came. And I got to meet him too. And I'll never forget how strong his handshake was. He was, I want to say, at that time, he had to be mid-80s.
George Sr.
Yeah, George H.W. Sr. He was tall too. I think he's like 6'5" or something. He was huge.
Okay.
And he's going through. And the cool thing was he was talking to us one at a time. Really, just say, "Hey, son, where are you from?" And he got to me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm from Florida, sir." And he's like, "Florida? You guys used to have a good governor." And he grabs my hand, he just yanks me out of the way. I was like, holy shit, like old man strength. You heard of old man strength. He had old man strength.
Wow.
And he just threw me out of the way. Of course, that was a Jeb Bush reference, because he was our governor earlier.
Right. That's right.
In that decade. So I thought that was pretty hilarious at the time, but that was one of those things that you'll never forget, Pretty cool, pretty surreal, just being a young Marine, just having that, opportunity. There was one point where Chancellor Merkel was in the area as well, because she was a part of that ceremony, and she came walking in, and I remember, oh crap, nobody's there to open the door, and I sprint to the door because I just happened to be the one closest to it, and I open the door, and here comes Merkel and a bunch of cameras, and I'm just like, freezing and watching her walk by. So right in front of me, I'm like, oh wow, it's just a really surreal experience. All like just everything happening, like a little movie in front of you, slow motion lights, and you're just like, wow.
That's good
pretty
stuff.
cool to be a part of something like that. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So, when did you start playing hockey? Because you were wrestling.
Mm-hmm. So wrestling was always, I would say, it wasn't my first sport, but it was my first good sport in terms of just being competitive and getting to see some successes. Ice hockey, of course, I touched the surface of it back in my youth. Started watching it more. I want to say it was about 99 or 2000. My mom took me to my first NHL game.
Okay.
Her boss had some extra tickets and said, "Here you go." And I think it was against the Stars.
Okay.
And that's back when they had Sergei Zubov and Medano and those guys, and they just annihilated us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that same week, we got tickets to a Devils game.
Okay.
So then comes Brodeur, Elias, and those guys, Scott Stevens, and again, annihilation. We're just getting, and this is, of course, when the Lightning were really bad. But from then, I was hooked on hockey. Okay. I was like, this is amazing. Like, to see that in person and to see how just, the motion, and it really intrigued me. And I said, you know what, maybe one day. But hockey is not a cheap sport either. So
no, it's sort of like,
so
bottomless new equipment and stuff like that. Yeah.
So in my youth, that wasn't a thing. Wrestling shoes, that's all you need for wrestling.
Right.
Good classic poor man sport. All you need is a pair of shoes and you can go wrestle.
Right.
2006, when I was in Ankara, of all places, in Turkey, there was an ice rink not too far from where we were living.
No way.
And I just started skating. Randomly. And I thought it was the funnest thing in the world because I loved ice hockey, but now I can finally actually try skating.
Yeah.
And this was just, it was an open rink. It was just one of those sessions where you can go there and just skate around.
Okay.
And it was like 8 a.m. As soon as the place opened, it was empty and the ice was all mine. And I'm just flying around. Just, I didn't have much experience ice skating. So, I looked like a noob out there.
Pretty much self-taught then.
Had to self-teach.
All right.
There was one guy standing up because it was kind of an arena style. On one side, you had a restaurant and windows, and on the other side, you had some stands where people could sit and spectate, maybe a couple hundred seats. And this guy was watching me skate around for like 10 minutes. He's just standing up in this about a few rows up. He's just watching me. And then he comes down to the ice as I'm circling, and I'm like, why is this guy still watching me? He was actually one of the trainers for the clubs there.
Oh, okay.
And then he comes up and he says, "Hey, do you like ice hockey?" And I was like, "I love ice hockey." And he's like, "Do you play ice hockey?" I'm like, "No, I don't play ice hockey." He's like, "Do you want to play ice hockey?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not? I'm here and I have free time." He's like, "Okay." And he gives me his card and he says, "We have practices on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7:30. Come and see me and I'll walk you through it."
Nice.
And then, there was my first practices. He set up some cones for me. I didn't get any gear yet. This is just me and my skates. Yeah. And he's like, okay, now he was an excellent skater. This guy, he was so light on this. He had this very smooth, especially when he was actually playing.
Okay.
He would get the puck and he just looked, I don't know. You can't describe how this guy would skate. If I can compare him to a player, he kind of had a Braden Point style of skating to him, like just so smooth. Like the puck is glued to him. He's just kind of going in whatever direction he wants. He could stop on a dime. But anyways, he's putting me through cone drills. And after about a month, he's like, all right, so I think he liked what he saw. He's like, all right, so if you buy some equipment, I'll put you out there with those guys. And I remember looking at those guys. I was like, oh, shit. Like, does he really want me to skate with these guys? Oh, man, those guys ate me alive when I first got there. But, of course, that's all to your benefit.
Yeah.
If you have that compete in you and you want to keep going and, I'm over here, trying to look at the puck at the same time as when you're touching that for the first time. That's a different ball game, right? And the defenders are just kind of shadowing me, screwing. They know I'm a newbie, but they're working with me, and they're shadowing me, and then just give me a little bump, and I go falling down, and I'm just like, oh, Jesus, But then of course it got to a certain point. All in a couple of months where I can see the progress, and then we're starting to scrimmage. Right. And I remember, I did a coast to coast one time and I was like, whoa, because I'm just running as fast as I can. I weave this way, I weave that way. There's two guys. I end up, getting bumped and I'm still going. The puck's still on my stick and I get a shot off. And I'm like, that was fucking cool.
Yeah.
But, ice hockey, how, who am I talking to? You know how it is. It's just so much fun.
It's such a bug, I think I was 5 years old. My mom took me to a frozen canal in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I just wouldn't get off. She had to literally dragged me off the canal, and I was just like kicking and screaming the whole way. And it was since then that I really loved the ice. I always was bugging her after that to let's go down to the ice. Let's find some ice, let's skate. And then it was 1980 with the Miracle on Ice.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I was 8 years old at that point.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I begged my father to let me try, because my parents are both musicians.
Yeah.
And they were a little sporty too. Like my dad played some baseball. My mom played some basketball in high school. And so they were fully aware of sports, but they were like, this is going to last a month, and then you're going to be sick of it, So my dad was like, I'm not buying you all that equipment. So yeah, the first clinic I had, just the bare bones, I think I had like secondhand shin pads duct taped to my legs, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't have real hockey gloves. I had like ski gloves, and, but yeah, hockey just hooks you in,
Yeah, it's an excellent team sport. One of the best.
What you mentioned, like it's so expensive,
Yeah.
That's only a phenomenon that happens in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, it's not an issue, because there are so many programs in Canada that help kids get the equipment they need if they have the desire to play.
Yeah.
You get the equipment and they get you on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, and Florida is so much better now. There's, 2 NHL teams.
Two powerhouses. Yep.
Yeah, 2 powerhouse NHL. Now Florida's a powerhouse. And so many minor league teams too. Isn't there
there's
ECHL team there?
Orlando has an ECHL team. I think there's one around the Naples area. I'm not sure 100% what it's called, but there's a team down there.
Okay.
Yeah, what else? Crazy. And even in Tampa, from the time, I want to say around the time I was a teenager, I think there were 2 places you can skate. The Tampa Bay Skating Academy. It was they had both locations. One was actually not too far from where I live, where the Lightning also holds some of their practices, and the other one is also not too far from the actual arena, which is in a nearby suburb, Brandon. And there was one there. And now I think they built another one. I think there's 4 now, just in the Tampa Bay area, which is crazy. And that's a lot of money, because to keep the ice up in that environment all the time.
Right.
You're trying to play hockey year round in Florida. It's not very easy.
Right.
But there are some players that, you're starting to see it in the profiles, the Hughes brothers, they're Orlando kids.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And Shane Gostisbehere, he played down down in South Florida as well. So it's just like, oh wow, so like it is alive in Florida. There is some, it's not the northern US by any means, but you can see that the culture is down there. Florida in general is a very conflicted state with their fan bases in all sports. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning probably have the best fan base among all of the different sports in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Because they're a young team, started in the early 90s, but now
they have
with
3
we have 3 cups, in the last 17 years or something like that. But 2004. I want to say around that time when they started to really crack the surface, around 2003, around the time when the Devils were boss. Then that following year, the Lightning won the Stanley Cup. And that whole season, when they made the playoffs, you can start to see like the base was like, what's this going on with the Lightning? And of course they won the cup. And then after that, it was a solid, like you would see sellouts. Even when the Lightning went under again, we went so under that we got the first pick again and got Stamkos out of it. And, And now, then the following year we got Hedman, and that kind of gave us the foundation that we have now.
That's the base you got now.
So you got those 2 guys, and it's like, all right, there you go. It's kind of like Chicago back when they got Taves and Kane, and it's like, all right, or the Penguins getting Crosby and Malkin simultaneous. Right. Yeah, if you get a few players, unless you're the Oilers, you're probably going to do all right. So
what is up with them? They can't get their stuff together. Jeez.
Oh man, those guys. I really don't understand. I mean, I do understand it because they've always been a very front heavy team, which is not made for the playoffs.
Yeah.
There was the 1 year where they did go to the Stanley Cup, and they actually had a chance against Carolina when Carolina won the Stanley Cup.
Right.
That was a really good Edmonton team. But
but do you remember who they had on defense?
Oh yeah, Chris Pronger.
Chris Pronger.
He was a beast that year too.
Yeah.
And in general, he was one of those players. He had such an impact on that back end, and you had a lot of grinders. It was kind of like Buffalo that year that they lost to Carolina. Buffalo just had all these grinders and the Brières and the Drury's and these guys that just come after you nonstop. You don't need a superstar. You just need these guys that are going to play a well-coached, well-disciplined style. They're going to come after you. They're going to get back.
Right.
And they're going to make your lives miserable the whole game, and you're probably going to lose. Right. Unless you're a team that can match that intensity and maybe have a skill player or two that might be able to get you over the top against a team like that. So,
right. So often the stars are the star players are not really an issue in the Stanley Cup playoffs because they're marked.
Yep.
Like the opposing team will just match up their best defensive player against your best offensive player, and so they just cancel out. So it's the third and fourth line guys that really get it done.
Depth scoring,
yeah. So
100%.
just like what you said, if you get those guys, with a disciplined, coordinated attack, and they can stick to that, then you get a good shot at success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can talk about that all day.
I don't know what's up with the Flyers, man. That's my team, and it's just. One of my professors also follows all the Philly sports teams, and he just says, "Oh, the Flyers! They just every year they break your heart.
Yeah,
they break your heart. They come in with so much potential, and
the last years have not been really. I really enjoyed them thoroughly handing Pittsburgh their behinds those few years where Pittsburgh was coming off their cup run.
They seem to have no trouble with Pittsburgh in the playoffs, But besides that, it's just incredibly just disappointing.
Yeah. You guys got the like you said, the talent. It's just that's frustrating to not see that come together. Those early 2000 or those early 2010 teams.
Yeah, 2010 they went to the finals against Chicago. That was Chicago's first cup.
Yeah,
that's all right. And who did they have on defense? Chris Pronger.
Yeah, true.
That was the year they had Chris Pronger back there.
They had some studs on that team. Mike Richards, Claude Giroux was coming out.
Claude Giroux was a rookie that year.
He was coming out. I remember that. He was all over. That's where he got his name out there.
Yeah.
But Mike Richards was the man, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
That was a good Flyers team.
Oh, I saw you had a picture with Danny Brière.
Yeah, when they had the lockout.
Yeah.
And, Brière and Giroux came over and played for the Ice Baron. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And one of my buddies says, hey, let's go to the practice. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, they have open practices at the Sport Forum. And that was amazing. That you could just go there, watch them practice. Nobody's even there. I'm like, are there ice hockey fans here? Because this is.
I did the same thing. I got a selfie with Brière.
Nice.
And there's Giroux.
Oh, man. I missed Giroux because he had got concussed. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And he was gone. So I only got to meet Danny, but I was like, oh, man, I'm going to go meet these guys. And I think the day before, Giroux was already on a flight back to the North America to get checked out.
I went to the second practice that they had.
Oh, man. Lucky.
And they had Giroux and Brière doing drills together.
Yeah.
2-on-1s and things like that.
Yeah.
And these guys, man, can they skate.
It's different. I got to see.
Smoke.
I did get to see Giroux play with the Ice Baron before I went to that practice, and I just remember that game with him and Brière. I can't remember how many points each they had, but I know Giroux had a bomb on the one-timer on a power play. It was just like, these guys, man, next level compared to their teammates.
Every 2-on-1 that I saw them do in that practice, they somehow set up a one-timer. Big slap shot one-timer.
Yeah.
This is a Division I German
excellent hockey players.
Yeah, these are excellent hockey players. They couldn't stop that that one-timer. They couldn't stop that pass across. They got it every time.
When you know what level these guys are on, it's amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Just to see like how effortless they make it look in some cases. I mean, you see it all the time. Just being able to skate that fast, being able to hit those edges, being able to hit the passes. You know, it bounces a weird way, but it's still glued to their stick somehow, and they're able to just make something happen, make magic.
Yeah.
You know, it's really incredible. I do love watching some good hockey.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, I did get to have a small conversation with Briere when I did meet him.
Okay.
I had my Lightning jersey on, go figure.
Oh, no. Yeah, I saw that.
And I told him, I was like, hey, sorry I don't have any Buffalo or Flyers gear. And he's like, nah, it's all right, as long as it's not Montreal. And I was like, what?
Oh, nice.
And I looked up his profile, and I could see where he was from. He was in the Ottawa area, was where he comes from. So I was like, okay, I see what he did there. And then I think it was 2 years later, he signs a 2-year contract with the Canadians. And I was like,
geez.
The NHL is a freaking business. That's when I learned that sports, how much of a business it really is. Like, he said that, like, you know, fuck Montreal. He said that, like, you know, that was coming from his heart. And then here he is signing with them. I'm like, Yep,
that's the way it goes.
Thought that was hilarious.
That's the way it goes.
Irony.
Yeah, Philadelphia. I don't know what it is. I mean, the fans are really hard on the players. You know, they'll boo them if they're not happy with how hard they play.
Philly fans are very direct.
And you know, it seems every year there's a goalie controversy. You know.
Yeah. What do you think of Carter Hart? Is he the future?
I feel, you know, I got to watch a couple games when he first came in, and there was this tremendous confidence that he had that I've never seen him have since, you know?
Yeah.
And I've seen him have some really great defensive flourishes, but, you know, the confidence, what it does to your game is it raises it to a level where you seem to always know where the puck is. Mm-hmm. And when your confidence is low, you always sort of doubt yourself. You know, you can always tell when a goalie is sort of low on confidence was where the puck is under them and they look behind.
Yeah.
Once they look behind, then I know he's not feeling it today. You know, because when you're feeling really confident, you know, this is not a skill thing. He's a very skilled goalie.
Yeah.
But you can't teach someone to be confident.
Yeah.
You know, you can put them in a shrink's office all day and they still could not maybe learn how to have confidence. You know, it just comes from playing well. It comes from putting in the work and playing well day after day after day.
Yeah, that's a big part. Putting in the work. That's the most. I think you can say that about most sports. A very transferable skill. If you don't put in the work, it shows usually.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, just doing a quick transition over to wrestling. That's the biggest part of wrestling.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can see in a match sometimes a guy is clearly better than the other guy. Maybe it's like, you know, UFC boxing sometimes. You see a guy that's clearly better, but guess what? If one guy runs out of gas and he doesn't know how to fight under that duress, he's going to get destroyed. He's going to get TKO'd, or he's going to have an embarrassing comeback. He's going to lose. Conor McGregor's a classic example of a guy that when he's gassed, he's ultra vulnerable. But in those first rounds, and he's fighting, you know, most guys, if he lands, you're gonna fall down.
Right.
But you take him deep like Nate Diaz did and embarrassed him, where he just wasn't ready. He wasn't conditioned for that kind of fight. And Nate Diaz is a zombie. You know, you can hit him as much as you want. That guy's going to come at you with a bloody face, and he's going to slap you. He's going to punch you. He's going to put you on the ground. He's going to make your life miserable.
Those brothers are unbelievable.
Those guys, man. Yeah, you know, both of them. Yeah.
They got something special. It's like in their blood.
Yeah.
Because you look at them, they don't look imposing at all. I mean,
classic.
I think I probably have just as good a physique as they do. But there's no way I would step in the octagon with them.
And
holy crap.
That was the first time in my life when I learned, because, you know, I was a big 103. Because I was coming down from about $120. And I remember there were a lot of guys that just did not look like physical specimens. But those were the worst guys to get in there with. They had the technique, they had the skill, and they would embarrass you if you took them lightly. And I was like, holy crap. You know, our 112 state runner-up was a perfect example. He wasn't big. You know, he had these skinny little legs on him, but this guy will destroy you. He was a little octopus out there.
Yeah.
You know, he went to the wrestling camps. He went to Arizona State University where they had some legendary coaching. He came back a different wrestler, and you could see clearly he was on another level in practice. we'd be tired. He'd still be up. He'd still be moving. He was just constant. And you see when he got in one of those high level matches where you see everybody surrounding the mat like, these guys are going at it. And we want to see what the result of this is. And that's when I knew, like, oh crap, I'm in the wrestling room with a different guy. When I saw that he was wrestling another state champion and just bossing this guy, I was just like, holy shit, Stan's he's the real deal. Like, that's amazing. And it was just a play, and I appreciate it so much more, like just working with him. And now I know where all the tech falls were coming from because I had no chance. He was just taking me down, letting me up. And that's degrading as a wrestler when a guy is just taking you down and letting you up. And you'll see it even in the highest level college matches where that's the highest level of wrestling in the States in the folk style. That you have some wrestlers that are just playing with you, getting team points. They know they're probably not going to pin you, but they're just going to say, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to let you up because it's all about racking up the points to help your team win the dual meet as a team. Right. So if you're doing your part, you're doing your part for the team. So it's an individual and a team sport simultaneous.
It's got to be so humiliating.
So, and you see the other guys, they're like down on the ground. They don't want to get up too fast because, but at the same time, you could see they're clearly demoralized and they're just like, I don't want to get up because I don't want to get taken down again.
Right.
It's wrestling can be brutal.
Can you pin yourself?
No. I mean, you can lay on your back like a little punk, but nobody's going to do that. Nobody's just going to lay down.
No one's that. Okay.
No, nobody's going to do that. Nobody wants to be dominated in that way.
I'm just thinking of it like from a team aspect, if the other team needs 10 points, you can sort of, I don't know, get the other guy to somehow pin you, and then you don't get the points. The team doesn't get the points.
So those in those big duels, I mean, I still watch college wrestling now. 6 points for a pin, 5 points for a tech fall.
How do you get college wrestling?
YouTube, Big Ten Network.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Big Ten Network.
You see all those live?
Not live, but they'll throw up they'll throw the dual meets up usually a few hours after.
Oh, okay.
So if it's a Friday night, you'll go to Big Ten Network on YouTube and you'll see that they have the Minnesotas versus Ohio States and the Penn States and all these big programs.
Shout out to YouTube.
Hey.
Except we need fewer commercials, YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's getting a little ridiculous.
Skip ads.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, okay. And I saw some I always got to go back to the photos that I find of Facebook. That's the only research I could do on you.
That's where the most traffic is. Yeah.
Yeah, I see you got some photos there with Dana White.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
That was pretty cool.
That was cool. We were in that was here in Berlin.
Yeah. They must they did like a traveling.
Yeah, exactly. They did. I think once a year they were doing that. Like I went to Hamburg to watch the UFC as well.
Okay.
I think that was 2016 or 17. But the one here is where I got the picture with Dana.
Okay.
One of my buddies, he got premium seats to sit in that 200 section. I forget where that was exactly, but it's on that. If you're looking at the Mercedes-Benz Arena from the front, left side over there, they have the premium seating.
Okay.
On that side. So he was able to get a couple seats through a mutual friend, and he's like, hey, let's go. And we sold our other tickets because we had normal seats. But he's like, hey, we got these premium seats. Why not?
Ah, nice.
And I was like, sweet.
Good.
So we go in this area. As soon as we walk in there, we were really early. You see Dana White walking by. We're like, holy shit, dude, that's Dana. Just walking right in front of us because there was a club right there. And, of course, people who had VIP access can go in there. They can meet maybe a fighter or two, whoever was in there. They can meet Dana, blah, blah, blah. Didn't get a chance to meet him yet. But we were hanging out like little fanboys. They're like, maybe he comes out soon. He came out. We were able to talk with him. We were able to get a couple pictures with him then.
Yeah.
And then again, we were sitting up front along the wall or along the entryway where the fighters were coming out. So literally we had those seats. And Dana just happened to be walking by after all the fights were over. And he was just kind of coming up and just meeting people in the crowd, talking, just being jolly. After a nice, successful event, he's happy. He's in a good mood.
Awesome.
And he's just coming up to people. We're like, Dana. He's like, hey, what's up, guys? And he's like, we're like, hey, let's get a picture. And everybody just swarms. And, Dana just loving the moment, just gets all in it.
Yeah, he's got like a big smile.
He was having a good old time.
Yeah,
it was really cool. Cool experience. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Where do you think this this league is going? This UFC league, because it seems like it's getting more and more popular.
Well, I mean, as long as they can put on a good, they bring the best fighters in still. I mean, I know right now there's the conversation about the payout. And how they're paying fighters, because I think right now it's not being fairly distributed.
And the careers are so short.
And
sometimes.
I mean, look what they're doing. I mean, they're beating the brakes off each other, and that's not something the body's designed to go through for so long before it just breaks down ultimately.
Yeah.
I mean, GSP was a classic example of an excellent fighter, but his body was done after a certain amount of time.
George
That was my favorite fighter.
Yeah.
But I remember even in where was it? Can't remember where I think it was in person. It was either Hamburg or Berlin where he was there, and I saw he had a big brace on his knee because he was coaching one of the fighters, and I was like, oh, look, there's GSP, but he looked like he could barely walk. I was just like, man, and he's only 40 years old. But I mean, he had to end his career just because it just taxed his body too much. And I mean, good for him. Now he's in Hollywood and he's, making films, and he's still making a living doing other things.
Yeah.
But
thank God for that.
It's just, but yeah, it's not a sport that's friendly to the body. I mean, most guys get started late before they really get competitive. I think your average fighter is probably in their early 30s if they're good. It takes a while to develop that craft.
I tell you what I really love about the UFC, and then I'll tell you my concerns. I love that it combines all of the martial arts,
absolutely,
art forms.
Yep.
I think you can really tell when a fighter is weak in one of the forms. You know, you can tell whether it's the boxing or whether it's grappling or the jiu-jitsu, and you can really, that's very apparent even to someone who has never been like a wrestler or really been involved with like combat arts.
Yep.
Like me, unless you count hockey. That
counts.
It counts. But I have to say, like, the more I watch and the more I listen to the commentators, and I kind of learn just by what they're talking about. Like, Joe is great about this. Joe Rogan is really great because he'll break it down like when he's commentating, and then you listen to his podcast, he breaks it down even a little bit more, which is
he knows his stuff when it comes to
really great.
Yeah,
I have to say I'm very appreciative of that. And I also love that it's co-ed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a big fan of women. You'll get to know my girlfriend better in the next few weeks. I'm sure we got to get our families together because I think we'd really connect. But she's a strong woman, and my mother was a strong woman, and I'm attracted to strong women. And when I see these, like Juliana Pena, is she? She's the champ now.
Yep.
She's the one who took down
Amanda.
Yeah. She was just on Joe Rogan the other day.
I saw a piece of that. I didn't see the whole thing, but
so well. She told her sort of origin story. She's a single mom. And I mean, she's still finding the time to train like she trains.
That's difficult.
And the travel and doing all this stuff and still like taking care of her daughter, and I think it's her daughter. Yeah. Hats off to these girls.
Yeah.
They're breaking the mold. First of all, they're breaking the mold by just wanting to be a UFC fighter.
Yeah.
I mean, what 5-year-old girl looks at the TV and says, "Oh, I want to do that"?
Yeah, there are not many.
When you look at poor Misha Tate after, I think it was I forget if it was Ronda or Amanda.
Probably Amanda.
That just bloodied her.
Probably Amanda. Yeah. Amanda was Amanda's next level.
Cut her face wide open, and I mean, it's grotesque,
Yeah, it's a vicious sport. It's not for everybody.
But hands off to these girls, because they just really let it all hang out.
Yeah, they're tough as nails.
Yeah,
for sure.
It seems like with Dana, there's good organization. The concerns I have are, number one, how they start to do these payouts. Because like you said, they have to level the playing field a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they have to get more money into the pockets of the fighters. To make it worth their while.
Yeah. Some fighters are not making enough. Not nearly enough.
They're going to get better fighters if they are willing to pay more. So that's going to raise the level. If you're a world class jiu-jitsu or boxer or taekwondo specialist, you can make a lot of money opening a school.
Yeah.
A lot of money. You know, I mean, I think that was Bruce Lee's original dream. His dream was to like open these schools all over the country to teach Kung Fu. And I mean, they found out that he was like amazing on the big screen. So, you know, that kind of took over, but he was always teaching. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in teaching, you know, so why give up that lifestyle, you know, to be the sensei, the guru, the boss, you know, to go get your face bashed in. Yeah. You know?
And I'll tell you, I mean, as a wrestler, because I mean, wrestling, you know, that's another one of those very strong mixed martial arts bases that sees a lot of success. Yeah. Because that work ethic and the base. So the Tyron Woodley's, GSP, when he picked up wrestling, you could really see the glaring difference between his style compared to most other fighters, because he would just take them down and maul them in most cases. That was his thing. And most wrestlers, that's their style. Very few wrestlers will stand up and fight, although there are many who can. John Jones, he was a world-class Greco wrestler, little do you know.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was such an excellent fighter that it didn't really, you know, people were like, they don't see him as much of a grappler. But if you tried to tie up with John Jones, he would put you on your back. Like, you really want to go upper body with me? Good. Boom. I'm going to trip you real quick, and then I'm going to start dropping these nasty elbows on you. Yeah. What he was really known for. Going back to just the craft itself, I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than, you know, passing on that skill and passing on just the love of the sport. I mean, I'm pretty sure the same can be said for hockey. If you've had any kind of training in terms of just working with younger athletes in general, I'm still a member of the wrestling club that I'm wrestling with. And my competing days are over. I did wrestle with the Landesliga and Oberliga here as well.
Wow, cool.
With Hennigsdorf.
Yeah.
A few videos on YouTube there.
Oh, okay. Check that out. Check that out, folks.
So, but yeah, now when I know, like, okay, I can't wrestle anymore in terms of the compete, you know, I knew it was time, because I was getting in there with some young guys, and there was one match that I just felt so embarrassed. I won in the end, but I was so embarrassed because I was just getting beat up. I was mentally out of it, like, damn it. And I hit a home run at the end that won me the match. Thank goodness. But stuff like that, I was just kind of like, you know what? I can't compete if I can't devote my time to the mat like I need to. I have a family at home. I have a job. I have this and that. How important is wrestling? I have to go all the way out to Brandenburg to train. I can't fit that into my daily schedule. So a lot of these guys that I'm wrestling against, these guys are wrestling all the time like you're supposed to be. Their conditioning is up. So now that I said, you know what, I don't have to compete anymore, now it's just fun to go out there and spin up the younger guys. Okay. And, you know, give them a few tricks, because, you know, like hockey, wrestling is not a one-size-fits-all. You got to play to people's strengths. Okay, you're horrible at doing this, so we're going to work on this, you know, and make you really good at this, because I see that you have, you know, more power, you have more upper body control. Okay, we're going to work on some upper body technique. But don't forget about your, you know, your defenses.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, it's so much fun to just, you know, pass on that knowledge that you have, and then go out there and watch them in a fight or watch them in a match and see them using something that is like, I knew it, you know, like they're doing exactly what they should be doing. They're not only using what I taught them, but they're adding to it. They're good. They're putting more behind it. And sometimes it is about the confidence, like a hockey goalie. You know, sometimes if your confidence is low, you're just going to get beat. And, you know, I'll see some guys like, okay, he's more talented than you, but I think you have a bigger gas tank. Go toe to toe with this guy last. Now do this. You can do this now. This guy is done, you know, and you have to try. You only have such a short window in wrestling. It's 2-3 minute periods. You only have that 30-second break in between periods to tell your guy what you're seeing. Like, because when you're in there, you're in another world when you're actually out there wrestling. Right. And you have 30 seconds to listen to your coach, breathe as fast as you can and get some oxygen in your system. And then you're back out there doing it again. And if you don't have a coach that's spinning you up, and if you're behind, you're probably going to lose the match. Right. So you have a small window to say, hey, do this, do not do that again. You know, mistakes that you're seeing and things that you want to add to their arsenal, so they go out there and do, you know, win ultimately. So it's.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
When you watch a UFC fight,
Yeah.
do you know before the fight starts, like, oh, this guy's background is jiu-jitsu, this guy's is
Most
Olympic
of the time.
wrestling,
Most
this
of the
guy's is
time.
Greco-Roman or Tai Chi or Tai Chi? No, not
Muay
Tai
Thai.
Chi.
Muay Thai.
Yeah, Muay Thai.
Yeah. Most of the time.
Yeah?
Most of the time. Yeah. You know who the fighters are beforehand. So you knew guys like Lyoto Machida. You know he's a world-class karate guy. So you know he was gonna pick his spots when he was fighting, which was amazing to watch when he was in his prime. Because he had like that. I don't know if you ever played what was it? What's a good example? There was a fighting game back on like I don't know,
like Mortal Kombat or something.
Yeah, you could say Mortal
Street
Kombat.
Fighter.
Yeah,
Was it Street Fighter 1?
That's another one, of course.
Yeah.
But he has that drunken style, like that very wavy. Like you cannot teach that. Like, and for him, he had that kind of. He had this little wiggle to him when he was out there, and it threw guys off.
Yeah.
And then he'd just pop you, and you're like, and then he'd pop you again, and he'd kick you, and then he would throw combinations, and guys were just overwhelmed. And then he had this kind of Bruce Lee look where he would hit you with these vicious combinations, punch, punch, kick, kick, punch, punch. And you're like, ooh, and you could see like not only was it just he was throwing these, he was landing them specifically in certain areas that were throwing the guys for a loop, and they would just fall down sometimes. You're like, holy shit, that was
crazy.
Nasty. Like, I mean, watch some of Lyoto Machida's old stuff where he was winning matches, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Amazing to watch. Like, you'll never see anything like that again, I don't think.
Yeah.
But he was fun to watch in his prime until he met John Jones, and then and then he met his maker then.
But yeah, back to the women fighters.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what also sort of attracts me to their matches is that, well, there are many fewer.
Yep.
And you tend to pick up their stories, their backstories, their sort of origin stories as to where they got where they were. Got a little tickle. And they also just wear their emotions on their face, which, from me being an opera singer, I have like this theatrical background. So I love to see, the fight that really hooked me in was the Holly Holm.
That was a big one. Ronda.
Holly Holm and Ronda.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was big time. That was insane. I'll never forget that. That was down in Australia, that huge, and they had that stadium sold out, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that was when Ronda was like Ronda.
No one thought Holly was going to win.
No
one.
Nope. World-class boxer.
Whew.
And she hooked up Ronda, amazing, superior, world-class judo. So yeah, a lot of times she would grab girls, throw them around, and submit them and tap them. That was her bread and butter.
Right.
And then she tried to go toe-to-toe with a world-class boxer. And she got tagged a couple times, and she was gone.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Tyson, everybody's got something, everybody's got a, what is it? Everybody's got...
Achilles heel?
No, not everybody's got an Achilles heel, but everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Is he the first one who said that?
Hey, maybe he was. I
has
really
said
don't know.
that.
But yeah, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth.
That line.
It's beautiful.
And I love that line.
That was on full display, that match, because I think it was the first. I think she got knocked out in the second round, but the first round, Holly was just tagging her with clean, boom, right to the jaw.
Yeah.
And, Ronda's face was just destroyed.
Yeah.
And then, she.
I think, well, in the past, so many of Ronda's opponents in the past would try to match what she was already good at.
Yeah.
Horrible
idea. Horrible.
Misha fought her twice.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right?
I think so. Yeah.
And both times, Misha was trying to use her grappling, and until she got really desperate, and then it was just kind of like 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, and nothing was landing. She was too weak at the time to really hurt Ronda at that point anyway.
Yeah.
And Ronda, with the judo, it was just like takedown,
Yep.
every time was threw her over her hip every single time. Was like it was. I thought I was watching a replay.
Yeah.
Because it was just so technically the same every single time.
Yep. Yeah, in any martial arts or any form of it, wrestling, taekwondo, whatever the case, you have to stick to what you're good at. Hockey, same thing. Stick to what you're good at. Don't try anything goofy that's going to get you in trouble in a real situation. I mean, if you're scrimmaging and screwing around, that's one thing. But if you're out there and you're trying something ridiculous in a game and the coach sees it, I'm sure he's going to be like, sit your ass down. Like, don't do that. What is that? Good luck getting back out there. And you're going to get scored on.
Yeah, you're going to get scored on.
So triple whammy. But yeah, know what you're good at, know what you're not. And if you're at a certain level, you probably might want to watch a match or two against of your opponent. Yeah. Get a little tape. Okay, he favors me. Okay, he moves this way all the time. He always favors his left side. Okay, so I'm gonna set up my leg kicks to take out that left side because that's where he's holding all his balance. And if I take that out, it's gonna throw him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you have to scout. You have to scout
doing the homework, man.
And again, stick with what you're good at. Impose your will, not not let the other person do what they want to do.
Yeah, it sort of comes down to just like anything in the world, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. Did you see? What do you think of Amanda? First of all,
Nunes?
Yeah,
she's a boss, man. I mean, what are you gonna say? She's knocked out some of the best. I didn't get to see the fight with Juliana Pena, unfortunately, yet.
It's on YouTube, yeah.
Probably. I need to check that out. But I mean, in the fights where I've seen her successes, I mean, she was on a different level than most of the women she came into contact with because she hit harder than any woman I've ever seen. Her punches, I mean, it's probably like for a lot of women fighting Tyson the first time because a lot of boxers lost to Tyson because of how hard he hits. They did not know how hard this guy punches, and you would see their gloves drop, and he would just hook them up because he was just coming at the body, and you never seen anybody take body shots so vicious where guys could not keep their hands up anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And he had that, and he was inside, and he just played. He had those little T-Rex arms, boom, 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 and uppercut, and guys were gone. And first round knockout, second round knockout because they underestimated his power.
Yeah.
That's the kind of power Nunes had, where she would hit you with one punch, and you saw she would throw punches like those were hips, that was heel flaring, and that was everything was behind each punch.
Yeah,
especially when she would throw that right, and then she would come around, boom, with the left, and these weren't just normal punches; they were designed to do one thing, and that's to put you down. And most women fell down as a result. You can't try to match that. You have to come at her differently. It's like going at Ronda. Let me try to grab Ronda. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
So if you're a fighter in this sense, the only thing you can do in that sense, where if this person's going to be throwing punches, you have to try to get inside. You have to try to get closer to them, try to take away that momentum that they're putting behind. It's like, okay, if she's wants to space out so she can throw these heavy hits, maybe I need to step a little closer and I need to work on my takedown game or my grappling game and keep her from throwing those punches, try to wear her down a bit.
Joe said it. During the, I forget which fight it was, maybe with Amanda and Ronda, he mentioned that, Amanda's punches are long.
Yep.
And she sets them up so she catches you at like the last inch or 2 inch of her reach.
Mm-hmm.
So
everything.
She's not trying to hit you when she's here. She's trying to hit you when she's here.
Everything's behind it.
Yeah. So she gets all of the momentum behind it, like you said, like the hip turn and everything like that.
Yep.
And she just hits so square.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for the she's pretty big for a woman, right?
Yeah. She's built up. Yeah.
Yeah.
She works out.
She's at least 5'10", I think, ish.
Yeah, she's like 5'8", 5'9". Yeah, something.
And she's got these really broad shoulders, and you would think, oh, maybe she's not that fast because she's also pretty muscular as well.
Yeah.
But she's fast.
Yeah. Incredibly fast. Yeah.
And she's got that great 1-2 combo. It's just like pow pow. Pow pow,
yep.
Pow pow, pow pow,
and she connects, and it's almost like as a fighter, you can't move left or right because she sets it up perfect to where you're backing up almost, but again, she has that long reach, and she connects while you're backing up, and they almost don't know what to do, and they're getting hit so hard simultaneous, and it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, in the Ronda fight, you can always see Ronda's reaching out like this, trying to grab one of the punches.
That's all you can do,
but they're just too fast.
Yeah, that's all you can do. If you're Ronda, you want to grab her and guess what? Nunes knows Ronda wants to grab me. Yep.
She's too far away to grab the body, so she's trying to grab her arm or something like that, but her hands are too fast.
Yep.
So I'll tell you this, spoiler, but what Juliana did was she was able to match. She actually goes against what you and I were just talking about as far as strategy goes.
Yeah.
She's a better puncher than Amanda.
Breakthroughs, man.
But not with speed, with power.
Okay.
This is my own breakdown.
Yeah. Hey.
From watching the fight, and this is only what I can observe, you know. But what was happening was Amanda was hitting her with speed. She was connecting, but she wasn't hurting her.
That's scary.
Yeah, exactly.
That's scary.
It's like I play hockey on Saturday night. We got to get you in this Saturday night game because there's a cooperation between the Ducks and the South Stars. So we'll get you in for a few. But one goalie that plays on Saturday night, when I go in and I shoot and he saves it, he laughs at me.
That mental battle, man.
Oh, man. Yeah, it just makes me more angry and I play worse.
Yep.
So, but anyway. But yeah, I mean, Amanda's doing her 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. And besides them not being that effective on Juliana she was beat up a little bit, but she wasn't to the point where she was really hurt.
Right. Yep.
And I think what Juliana figured out was she figured out Amanda's rhythm. Because I was saying suddenly this 1-2, pa-pa, 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 that she kind of goes in for.
Yep.
And she's got this she does this
haymaker,
really high like left hook, Juliana was stepping inside that.
Yep.
So Amanda would go high left hook and Juliana would come in with a straight right. And it would land on Amanda's face. And she took about 5 or 6 of those.
Yeah.
And she was done.
Yeah. And she wouldn't throw it. Yeah, you couldn't. Yeah.
I mean, her hands were still up. The fight ended like this. Amanda's hands were still up, but she landed, she went for these big haymakers.
Yeah.
And Juliana went in with a straight right and got her every time. And that happened 4 or 5 times. You could see it. I mean, it's so clear, even to someone like me who's not an expert. And then, Juliana just basically walked around to her back, dragged her to the ground, put a chokehold. And Amanda didn't even she didn't hold out very long. She was just done. She didn't even fight the choke. And she was just boop, tap.
And she might have been taxed, and throwing those big haymakers is taxing. Those are some big punches you're throwing. I don't know if you've had to stand there and just throw punches or throw hard punches, but after a certain amount of time, it's not just the punches you're throwing, it's the whole posture.
Yeah.
Just holding your hands up and staying in form and moving around the whole time, that's already a workout itself, let alone add combinations, add a quick sprint at an attempt to grab someone.
Right.
This is all taking your energy, but those big punches, Conor McGregor, classic example, he was throwing some heavy hits at Nate Diaz. Eventually, you get tired. You cannot hold your arms up. You cannot keep throwing big punches like that without getting taxed.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather, when he fought Floyd, classic example. Conor was throwing these big punches, but after a certain point in time, Floyd knew what he was doing. Floyd's like, yeah, I'll take a couple of these. You're probably going to miss me with most just because this is what I do, but you're going to throw yourself out. And you saw by round 9 or 10, whatever it was, where Conor just got knocked down. He had nothing left.
Yeah.
He couldn't even stand up. And he's just protecting it, and Floyd just yep, my turn, boom, 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 until you fall down.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep throwing these big punches. It is taxing. It is taxing.
Yeah, amazing.
Combined with everything else, it's not just throwing punches, it's throwing kicks, it's moving, it's dodging, it's everything requires some form of energy. So
also, I think these video games from the 80s and the 90s, they were extremely accurate, where you see your status bar and you get punched in the face and your status bar goes boom.
Yep.
And it's totally like that because you can have a really strong punch and then you get punched in the face. It doesn't matter if your armor is tired or not. Your status bar
You're
goes
going down. Yep.
So it's your next punch is going to be
yep. Yeah. it stinks when you see it happen to some of the good fighters. But again, every fighter has a life cycle. And yeah, Amanda Nunes is probably still going to knock out more than the majority of women that challenge her. But there comes a time when someone is just better than you.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, this is going to be the thing, the rematch. I don't know if the next fight is going to be Juliana and Amanda.
I have to see the first fight to get a gauge. I mean, it was kind of like. I have to go back to a male reference because there's not too many female fight examples where you can compare. But Conor against Nate was a good example of, okay, if I put the work in, I might be able to win this time. Which was the case because Conor was clearly the better striker. Mm-hmm. Can he go 5 rounds? And he had to train himself to struggle to get that 5 rounds, but he knows if he can go 5 rounds, he can beat Nate Diaz, which is what happened. Wasn't by much because Nate Diaz, that guy can fight 10 rounds. That was a decision.
Okay.
Yeah. And but Conor was able to dominate enough to get the victory. It wasn't by much.
Yeah. Wow.
You can't put down a zombie.
I gotta go back and watch that one.
Yeah, the second fight was good.
Yeah.
Better than the first one in terms of entertainment, but it's
The other concern I have with the UFC is that it gets popular enough, which is good. I mean, we want it to be popular. We want it to be profitable for everybody involved. Mm-hmm. We want it to be entertaining. But, right now it is right on the cusp of starting to get more and more into the mainstream where too many people concerned about the violent part of it get involved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It seems to be happening at every level. I mean, you remember boxing back in the day. Mm-hmm. These guys would kill each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was sort of this balance that came in the 1980s or so, late 70s, 80s, where the refs were starting to step in when guys were out on their feet, quote unquote, out on their feet.
That is a thankless job, man. I would never want it. Nope.
That's a hard job.
That's
being a
a
ref?
difficult job. No way, man. Yeah.
That's tough.
Too much.
Yeah. And now we're almost at the point where with boxing, I'm just talking about boxing where, it's close. Sometimes they're stepping in too early, and even the commentators are saying he had a chance.
Yep.
His hands were up. Okay. Maybe he was a little wobbly,
It's tough.
Yeah. That's tough, Same thing is happening with American football.
Yeah, 100%. You can't touch the quarterback's head anymore, even if it was an accident.
Yeah,
they're gonna throw a flag.
I mean, can you imagine these players from the 70s?
Yeah,
the Mean Joe Greens and
they wouldn't be able to last in today. Steve Atwater.
Way. Yeah, I mean these guys would they'd be stepping on each other between in tackles and biting each other in the scrums and stuff like that.
It was a different football.
Yeah,
yeah,
and okay, biting and stepping on people, that's a bit far.
I know what you mean.
But yeah, I mean, it's the protection of the heads, it's good.
Yeah, of course.
Nobody, including me, wants to see people get hurt, wants to see people's futures messed up because of severe brain damage.
Yeah,
it's a thing. It's
thing.
happening in hockey too.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah,
it's a thing. My fear is that kind of thinking, that kind of stuff starts to go into the UFC and really damages the quality.
And the only way around it, unfortunately, I see what you're saying, but the only way around is the professionals have to learn how to adapt.
Yeah.
Which sucks. But it is a part of the transition that, of safety that they're worried about in a full contact sport.
Yeah.
But football, I mean, you see players trying in football. There's some times where you'll see a player let up, but I'm telling you, I remember playing football, and you see a hit that you can deliver, go for it.
Yeah.
I didn't get to hit much. I was a receiver, but if there was an opportunity to throw a hit, I would throw everything I had into it because I wasn't very big and I didn't get those opportunities. Right. If there was a pick and I can go and get somebody, I can cut a guy off and he didn't see me coming and I can just nail him.
Right.
That's what you live for as a defensive player.
Sure.
Classic.
I did the same thing in hockey. I mean, I'm 6'3", and I was I think when I was playing in college, I was about 210.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is early 90s. So there were no big guys like me.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
So if you had your head down and you stepped over the blue line, I mean, you're in trouble. And I knocked some guys unconscious, or at least knocked the wind out of them. You know, they had to stop play and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, I feel pretty bad about it now because it's really, it's excessive.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to get rid of.
It's excessive, But what I'm worried about with the UFC is that, these, regulators or parents start to complain, or politicians start to complain about, Miesha Tate's face, all bloodied by Amanda, Ronda being basically out on her feet against Holly 30 seconds before she got the kick heard around the world.
Mm-hmm. And then the hammer fist following.
Yeah.
One
hammer fist on her face while she's basically out.
It's going to get to a point where they're going to start taking those away or penalizing, but that's what you're taught to do. Like you swarm him or her until the referee pulls you off. That's what you're taught as a fighter.
Right, exactly.
So, you see you'll see it once or twice maybe, like every few fights if there's a knockout or a guy will knock somebody out or a lady will knock somebody out and they'll go to hit them and then they're like, no, they're gone. You'll see it once or twice where they just say, all right, this is done.
Yes.
And the referee will see, already jumps on the fighter to try to protect the downed fighter.
Right.
But in those big fights where that adrenaline's flowing, you're not going to see that. Conor knocked out Aldo, and he's like, I'm going to hammer this fist harder than I just hit you with this knockout shot. And he lands one. And it's just like, that punch hurts. Those are some vicious shots coming down. When a guy is coming down and finishing you with a hammer fist, that is like... just imagine stomping somebody with your foot as hard as you can on the ground. That's the fist coming down.
Yeah, after they beat him. He was already beaten.
Fight's over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, fortunately with the UFC, you got these guys coming from martial arts disciplines.
Yeah.
And you have to hope that teaches them enough respect.
It does usually, but yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, usually, like you said. But, a lot of times these matchups become so personal.
Yeah, they get
people
nasty.
Are talking shit. They get under each other's skin.
Yeah.
It becomes a real problem when it comes to, I beat you, but now I must kill you.
Yeah. What is it? Stephen A. Smith said back when, you have a professional license to assault somebody inside that octagon.
Did he say that about UFC?
Yeah. Basically, he's like, because
I
think it was Daniel Cormier and John Bones when they had bad blood.
Okay.
And they were getting real personal. And John Jones, said in an interview on ESPN, he's like, I'll fucking kill you.
Jeez.
And John Jones is, he's a different person. And I was like, yo, man, you got to be careful with this guy. But the way he said it, and Daniel Cormier is just like, whatever, dude, just stop talking. Shut up. And they're going back and forth. And I'm like, yo, man, you piss off John Jones and he can legally fight you. This guy is capable of some nasty. You've seen what he can do to fighters. He'll stay with it.
Exactly.
He's never had a dirty fight, thank goodness. But you've seen what he can do in there. He will put you down. He will slice and dice your face with some nasty elbows, bust you open, and just leave you bloody in the mat. Those fighters, credit to their bravery.
Yeah.
Because, we're talking about world-class fighters, professionals, knockout artists, chokeout artists, and you're pissing these guys off.
Yeah.
It's like Jordan. That's why I thought he was, next level athlete, is because he
Michael Jordan?
Yeah, of course. My favorite athlete, of course, go figure. Because he was so good, obviously, step above everyone else in his era, and he would talk so much shit when he had that confidence going. He talked trash to the best player on the other team.
Did you watch The Last Dance on Netflix?
I'm only 2 episodes in.
Yeah.
I just got Netflix this weekend, actually.
Man, that is what?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'm late. I'm late to the party.
No, that's good. That's fine. Man, that is a great documentary.
For example, but it's just like, that makes me love him more because I remember, being a kid of the 90s and how special it was to watch that. Like, you knew, I don't care if you were 9 years old, if you were 30, you knew what you were watching. You knew what you were watching is probably not going to happen again.
Yeah, he was so dominant.
You knew what was going to happen. That's the only time I remember in my lifetime where you knew what you were watching. You knew what was going to happen at the end of the game. Yeah, if it was close, you knew it was going to Jordan. You knew he was going to make the shot, and the game was over.
Right.
It was unbelievable.
He was the perfect combination of the talent, the skill, the drive, the competitiveness.
He was the total package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he learned how to be a leader.
Yeah.
He wasn't a leader when he first came into the NBA. He was like, showboat king.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Showboat guy.
Yep.
Which we all loved.
Yeah, of course.
But it wasn't putting a world champion. Once he decided that he wanted to be a world champion.
Yeah.
He kind of figured it out.
Insane.
So anyway, those are my concerns with the UFC. I mean, I want to see it be huge. I want it to be one of the big sports, because also let's remember that the UFC is one of the few sports now that's really a global sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yep. Central
America, you got Juliana Pena. Was she born in the U.S.? I can't remember. She's Latina for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda from Brazil.
Yep. It brings the world together. Yep.
Valentina,
yep.
And then, same thing with the guys. They're from all over the world, even Russia, even South America, Canada.
Yep. And that goes back to, I have to throw wrestling in there. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
When
definitely.
I did a camp out here before I started competing again, we had an British Iranian. I don't know how you say that. British Iranian. I guess depends where you come from, but he was a British Iranian.
Okay.
Living in London. He was also a world-class wrestler at one point. We got him to come out here and put a camp together up in Schwerin. And you have a lot of people from Eastern Europe a part of this camp. And the cool thing was, I was studying at the time. I majored in international relations. But just knowing that, learning about the friction between the West and the East in the political sense, and just seeing that we're all here together on the mat, Iranian, Russian, American, German, and it was it's a little utopia. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
We're here to wrestle. We're hugging. We're slapping hands. We're hanging out together. We're having coffees. We're drinking at night. Yeah. We're having a good time together, and everything is just forgotten because it's just the sport.
Right.
And Jordan Burroughs, for example, sticking to one of the American greats, currently still just won a world championship last year, and he's been dominating since 2012. Or 11, he goes to Iran and he's a rock star and people love him and they're chanting his name. And this is an American in Iran, and of course, the at least the politics behind it.
Exactly.
It's like, ooh, but no, he goes there. He is a rock star, as are all the wrestlers, because it's such a big sport in the country that's what comes first. That's what matters. They respect the wrestler. They respect the sport. They respect what they're seeing. And screw everything else. And that's, and sports, and that's what sports does in general. It brings, Olympics, it brings people together. It brings sport together. It brings the world together for a moment. And people usually aren't thinking about the politics behind it, although it does get thrown in there from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
1972, for example, it's...
well, this particular Olympics, it's a diplomatic... what do they call that? Boycott.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Diplomatic boycott. Yeah. So there's no diplomats from the U.S. going to China.
It's a crappy situation. Obviously, there's a lot of layers behind it as to why it's being done.
Of course, COVID is part of it too.
Yeah,
so
that doesn't help things. Yeah. COVID. Hopefully we get past this at some point. All we can do is our part. Make sure we're doing what we know is right, and
Yeah, they're having some trouble with that in Canada right now, because it seems like the government wants to keep imposing, even when the rest of the world is sort of loosening their grip on the regulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I don't know what's going on there.
No idea, and it sucks how it's become a political football, obviously, in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it is a thing, and people need to recognize, hey, this is a pandemic, and we should be trying to do everything we can to get out of this pandemic. Yeah. If that means follow the science, that means follow the science.
Sure.
You know, it doesn't mean this is your time to take a stand. And, you know, I get it. You know, and that's also a penalty of being a free society, is you have to deal with the diversity of thought. And some people are like, no, I'm not going to do that because I want to make a principled stand that I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I disagree with you vehemently, but fair enough. And that's kind of a consequence of a free society. You know, there's going to be people who think what they think based on, you know, their cultural beliefs, their religious beliefs, their education, their own personal experience.
Yeah.
But hey, you know, all you can do is, you know, hopefully get the information that's out there. We do live in an information full era where literally we can find everything we need. You know, and I think what really stinks is the amount of misinformation that matches the actual information. Yeah. And, you know, that's what leads people down the rabbit holes. That's what keeps people inside their bubbles. Yeah. We all have our own biases about things. We all don't agree on everything. But, you know.
Seems like people don't know where to go to trust anyone.
I get that.
They seem to not trust anyone. They don't They don't trust the mass media. They don't trust the independent media. They don't trust the doctors. They don't trust the government. They don't trust their family members. They don't trust. It's like
it
they
sucks.
Don't trust anybody. Nobody trusts anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all of it could be misinformation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I hear you.
I was having a conversation, I can't remember another guest that I had on the show, where we were just talking about, maybe it was Sarah. We were talking about, like, you know, wouldn't it be nice to just have, like, you know, like back in the 1970s, we had like this, you'd go to a channel on the TV and there was never a person there. Mm-hmm. It was like this screen with words on it, you know, and it was just like information about the state fair. The state fair will be open from 8:00 in the morning until 12:00 at night. You know? Come for cotton candy, you know, and the weather tonight will be 40 degrees Fahrenheit and blah, blah, blah. It was just like pure information. There wasn't even somebody interpreting the information, you know. I mean, wouldn't it be sort of nice to have that?
It would be, but now that would be questioned nowadays. Yeah, but I know this.
Because they question everything. Yeah. Everybody sort of questions everything, you know.
It's unfortunate. I mean, you know, and that also goes back to just the basic education, you know, and what are we teaching people nowadays? Because, of course, you know how diverse the education system is in in America, for example, just using that. By state. State controlled, state Big regulated. Problem. So if we decide that we don't want to teach this part of history, you know what I mean? It's just, it's a mess.
Problem. Yeah.
And I think that, of course, there are certain, you know, I would say subjects that should be taught that aren't taught at the school level, that are only taught in the university level. It's like, no, move it to school level, teach the fundamentals of it. Don't say left versus right. Don't say this is right, that's wrong. No, teach what is actually grounded in fact.
Yeah, this happened.
And then let people make their own determinations from there. But teach them what the fundamental is, what the definition is, examples of what, you know, which highlights those definitions, and leave it there. And then, you know, also teach that literacy behind it. Where can I find this relevant information so that people can make, you know, hopefully an educated choice. But, you know, that's you know, that's not something you can teach everybody, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, my man, what time do you think it is?
What time we start? 3? I'm going to guess it's, I'm going to say it was 2 hours.
It's 5:30.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we actually started a little bit before 3 because you were so punctual.
Hey.
You're on military time. So, yeah, I think we hammered out a lot of subjects here.
Yeah, we talked about a few things. Yeah, for sure, man. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Got to have you back.
Yeah.
And, let's set up some barbecue dates with our families here. What do you think?
I'm down with some barbecue.
I
got one there. Cool, man.
All right. Anything you want to plug before we sign off here?
No, this is it's great what you're doing. Again, you should definitely have everybody on that you can. Have a good conversation. You know, the subjects are endless. You know, you can talk about anything. You can do a little digging. You know, see some mutual interests. You know, challenge your own biases, even if that so be it.
Sure.
You know, and we can actually do that. We can actually challenge, you know, someone's opinion on certain things and have a dialogue about it. Like, people need to actually talk to each other. So, Really
my
great what
goal
you're
is to
doing.
really expand people's perspective.
Yeah.
And that includes my own.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know? So thanks for sharing everything, bro.
Yeah, appreciate the time, man. Thanks
All
for
right,
having
man.
me, brother.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.